Bethlehem, so the Holy Bible say. Mary's boy child, Jesus Christ, was born on Christmas Day. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a new king born today. And man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Trumpets sound and angels sing. Listen what they say, that man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. While shepherds watch their...
I know it's not like December the 25th, okay? I'm not trying to wish away any time at all. It is only the 17th of November, in fact. There are many days between now and Christmas Day. However, I woke up this morning to a little bit of snow here in the region of Waterloo. I suspect that you did the same. And I know if you're living anywhere west of here, you're like, a little bit of snow, Farwell. I say that specifically to my friends in Stratford this morning. Phil, I'm thinking of you specifically. Nonetheless, the dusting of snow and the fact that our sister station, Chime 96.7, began last week, all Christmas, all the time, music, that is. I thought, why not? Why not? On this Monday morning, the 17th of November, go all the way back to 1957. That's right, almost 70 years ago. Harry Belafonte was at number one on the UK singles chart with that song you just heard, Mary's Boy Child. And isn't it beautiful? Man can sing. It was the first single to ever sell 1 million copies in the UK, and it remained at number one for 7 weeks, making it the number one Christmas song back in 1957. And, little fun fact, the first Christmas song to hit number one in 2 different versions. The other was the Boney M version in 1978. You know how I feel about Boney M. But anyway, would that make the Boney M version a cover version of Harry Belafonte's 1957 version? I mean, it might be a bit of a stretch, but let's call it that anyway. And with that in mind, let's make our theme for All Request Friday this week cover songs. How do you feel about that? Pick your favorite cover song. Let us know what it is, and we'll play it for you on All Request Friday this week on the show. How's that for a plan? Is it a deal? Okay. All Request Friday theme this week. Cover songs. Let us know your favorite. We'll play a little bit of it during our All Request Friday show this Friday. You know how to get your requests in, right? Just drop me an email anytime during the week before Friday, okay, so we can get your requests all queued up. The email address is easy. It's mike@570news.com. Or when you call in to talk about the issues of the day, let the guy on the other side of the glass know. In this case, it's Devin working with us this week, and he'll make a note of the song you want to hear on Friday, and we'll put it on the list. Cover songs, our All Request Friday theme. As I continue the Christmas theme just one moment longer, do not forget, my friend, please do not forget, the 570 News Radio Tree of Hope campaign is underway again in support of Family and Children's Services, Waterloo Region. There is a 50-50 raffle that has been launched. Guaranteed minimum jackpot, $50,000. That's already in the jackpot for the taking. And of course, Family and Children's Services will benefit. We know the jackpot's going to get even higher, but we want to encourage you to play along. Get yourself a ticket. They start as little as $10. You can get those tickets at FACS5050.com. FACS for Family and Children's Services. FACS5050.com. Why not get your tickets right now? Because if you do, you're in for the early bird prize, which we're going to draw on Friday morning. The first early bird prize in this raffle is a Kitchener Rangers VIP experience. You will get a stick signed by the entire Kitchener Rangers roster this year. You'll get a personal meet and greet with a player, and we're going to offer you a behind-the-scenes view and a seat in the press box with me and Josh Piercy for an upcoming Kitchener Rangers game. I will probably even let you pick the game you want. So if you want it to be a London game, you go right ahead and do that. Either way, that is your Kitchener Rangers VIP experience early bird prize. And when you're in the booth, if you think you've got the chops, Piercy and I will probably even put you on the air a little bit. So help out Family and Children's Services for the holidays. Participate in the 570 News Radio Tree of Hope 50-50 raffle. Tickets available at facs5050.com. As little as $10, you're in on the raffle. Guaranteed take-home jackpot right now of $50,000. Let's get to the phones this early Monday morning. You know that the minute the show begins, the phone lines are open. And our buddy Chef D is on the phone with us. Now, Chefy, now listen, usually when I see your name, I get a little bit nervous because I cheer for one team in hockey and you cheer for the opposite.
East of Ontario,
Yes, correct. And I know this much. I know that my team, they're having a rough ride, but I don't think your team is like all that great right now. So what do you want to rub in?
I just want to rub in that we're still ahead of your team.
Yeah.
Poop, and does this mean that Mr. Drewe might be coming to Toronto? Just throwing it out there.
Well, listen, you're not the first person to mention it, and I would be thrilled if the former coach of the Kitchener Rangers ended up in Toronto because my Leafs need a lot of help right now.
It's not fun.
So what is wrong with this world, Chefy, when both of our teams are struggling? Like, come on, we deserve better than this, don't we?
My team has been playing above their heads since they touched the ice in September.
Wow, but I saw Nick Suzuki in an interview. I think it was Nick. Anyway, on my Sunday morning Sportsnet Central highlights, and he didn't look like a happy guy.
Yeah. I think, you lose 3 games and nothing's fun, right?
That's fair. But we've lost 5, so there you go.
But I have big news.
Okay, what's your big news?
I wanted to share it with you because it's coming up and that. But do we have a minute?
Chefy, for you? I got 2 minutes for you.
Okay, ready?
Okay, yes.
I'm opening a restaurant.
Say what now?
I'm opening a restaurant.
Wait a minute. You're opening a restaurant?
It's going to be called Something Different.
Okay.
It's at our catering location, 184 Main Street in Cambridge.
Nice.
We're having a soft opening this week, but that's been sold out. But next Friday, Saturday, we will be open for business. And I just thought, you've done so many great things for me, and I wanted you to be the first to talk that I would talk about it.
So next Friday, the 28th, you're going to be open. Something different. 184 Main Street in Cambridge.
Yeah, that's what the name is, Something Different. So when you want to go with your beautiful bride going, what are we doing tonight? Let's do something different.
Oh, man, I love it. I'm going to look like a hero. We're going to do something different this time. I'm going to take you out for something different. She's going to be so excited.
Right?
I love it.
Anyways, I just wanted to share that with you, Mr. Farwell, and also, rub in just a little bit, and my team's still ahead of your team. But
as bad as it's going, yours is not going as bad as mine. I get it. But the restaurant's going to go great. Thanks for sharing that news with us, Chefy.
You're welcome. Have a great day, my friend. And, solve the world problems today for me, please.
I promise. That's what I'm here for, buddy.
Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, Chefy. Bye-bye.
What?
Our good friend, Chef D, he may cheer for a rotten hockey team, in my opinion. But he's a great guy. Don't even get me started on his significantly better half, Trish. Come on with your coming on with those two. And there you go. Chefy drops the news right here on the show this morning. Something different. 184 Main Street in the Galt area of Cambridge, opening up as his new restaurant next Friday night. Mark the 28th on your calendar. Next Friday. See, Chefy knows. First of all, he knows that he can rub it in a little bit with the hockey stuff on the show. And he knows if he wants people to know what he's doing with his catering and or restaurant, he knows to call here and let people know on the Farwell show, because that's what we do on this show. We let you know stuff. including, of course, your Farwell Show 5 every morning to start the show. Why don't we dive into that? Number one, regional police believe somebody was hurt when gunshots were reported in Waterloo early yesterday morning, but the victim is yet to be found. Investigators say the shots were likely fired between the occupants of two vehicles in the Bridgeport and Weber area around 2 a.m. Sunday. Meantime, Wellington County OPP are investigating a shooting in Morriston that happened during a home invasion early yesterday morning. One person with a gunshot wound was taken to hospital, but the suspect remains at large. Number two, the city of Waterloo has swimming on its mind, with a motion coming to council tonight looking at a new municipal facility that would include a 50-meter competition pool. The only facility in the region with a pool that size right now is at Wilfrid Laurier University, and that pool is nearing the end of its life. Waterloo says it won't consider the new facility without financial support from upper levels of government, but the motion will come before Waterloo Council tonight. This has been talked about kind of quietly for a number of years now, because the end of life of that 50-meter competition pool at Wilfrid Laurier was coming. So it's, I guess, a little less quiet now. Number three on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Grand River Transit is planning weekday bus service from Wellesley, or if you're from there, Wellesley, it's 3 syllables, don't you know, to Conestoga Mall. The route would use Regional Road 5 and Lobsinger Line, taking about 40 minutes to make the trip. The plan calls for the service to run for about 3 hours every morning and afternoon, with buses running every 90 minutes. Number four, last week, right here on the Farwell Show 5, I told you about a Kitchener native making his NHL debut with the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And now Braden Bowman has done this.
Eichel zips it across, Dorothy to Bowman, and he scores! Braden Bowman on the power play. It's his first NHL goal in his second NHL game.
There it is. Play earlier on this to keep the puck alive, and then Dorothea finds him after Eichel through the seam. Right back to Bowman. Bowman wide open, and he makes no mistake, his first NHL goal.
That one will be taken home, the puck, and find a special place for Braden Bowman, the native of Kitchener, the former captain of the Guelph Storm, and now an official NHL goal scorer. Bowman doing that in Vegas's game against the St. Louis Blues. For what it's worth, the St. Louis Blues, the next opponent for my Toronto Maple Leafs and yours. Even if you claim to not be a Leafs fan, you know you're a Leafs fan. Tomorrow night, you'll hear that game on 570 News Radio. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, fun little factoid for you. You've probably heard me make a little bit of fun of the Canadian Football League at times. I do it just because I love it. I love to tease you a little bit. And really, I've just never been a huge fan, but when I worked out west many, many years ago, I came to appreciate the appreciation of the Canadian Football League. They love it out west in this country. And when my buddy and I took a little weekend sports trip this past summer, I decided that I was adopting the Saskatchewan Roughriders as my team because we saw a game in Montreal between the Alouettes and the Roughriders. And I said, you know what? I like this team in green. I'm going to make them my CFL team. And then what happened yesterday in the Grey Cup?
Clock ticks down to 0. Davis Alexander steps up, has to look to the end zone. The Hail Mary for a Grey Cup! Broken up, incomplete, that'll do it! It took 12 years, but Saskatchewan's time is now. The Rough Riders, 2025 Grey Cup champions, can you believe it?
Maybe I should have just started cheering for the Leafs this year, and then they'd win the Stanley Cup for you. My Leafs are struggling. My Blue Jays came oh so painfully close in the World Series. And I don't even want to talk about my NFL football team anymore. I'm so angry at them. So how about it? The Saskatchewan Roughriders, my recently adopted CFL team, Grey Cup champions. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 17th of November. Before we take a break, let's get to the phones because I love hearing from you. It's the most interactive show anywhere in this region. And Patty is on the line with us. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning. How are you, Mike?
I am just great. Thank you, Patty. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. So I bet you're getting excited because we're getting closer and closer to the turkey drop, which will happen on Thursday, right?
You mean the anniversary of the great WKRP in Cincinnati turkey drop?
Yes, and I did give you the T-shirt. Someday I hope to meet, but not yet. Anyway, but also I missed the answer last Friday because I had to go into work. I work where Mike Hinchberger lived in the long-term care, but I missed the answer to what keeps us so alive or better in life after if you have this every day. It was,
the question was our not $1 million question, Patty. Yeah, we play that every Friday just for a little bit of fun between 9 and 10. And on Friday, if you consume this, it makes you appear smarter.
Oh, smarter, right.
Yes, and we all want to appear smarter, right?
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Absolutely.
Work in progress.
I hear you, Patty. I hear you. The answer was black coffee.
So, well, I'm screwed.
What do you mean? Okay. Patty, don't tell me.
No, I will drink black coffee, but sometimes, if I'm not working, don't have to drive anywhere, a little bit of Bailey's might help it a bit,
Only, okay. I can respect that. I do the Bailey's at the holidays, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah, anyway. Okay, well, that was it, but I just thought I'd phone in. I try to listen all the time, and I'm trying to retire, but I do love my job, and I'm heading there right now, but...
Well, you enjoy your day at work.
I will. And, let's watch for those turkeys on Thursday.
Sounds good, Patty. Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Great to hear from you this morning. It's what we do, right? After the weekend, we gather back around the radio on Monday mornings, have a little conversation, check in with each other. Every Friday on the show, I already mentioned All Request Friday. Cover songs is the theme for this week. So your favorite cover song, we'll play a little bit of it. And we also do the not $1 million question. And last Friday's question, if you consume this, a survey says, it makes you appear smarter. What is this thing? Black coffee. I had some fun with it because one of the guesses, actually more than one, a couple of the guesses were green tea. And I made fun of green tea drinkers. Again, we make fun of each other from time to time because we're like family. Right? Nobody takes it seriously. Nobody's feelings are actually hurt. But I may have suggested that you were a little bit on the wimpier side if you drank green tea, which led to an email. I believe the emailer was Andrew, and I loved it because he gave it right back to me. He said, the favorite part of my morning, Farwell, is you making fun of people who drink green tea when you are a self-proclaimed theater geek. In other words, what right does a theater geek have to call anybody else a little bit wimpy? Well played, sir. Well played. And I have Patty's T-shirt right here in front of me. The great WKRP turkey drop on November the 22nd, 1978. So 47 years ago this Thursday, the anniversary of the WKRP in Cincinnati. Great turkey drop.
Oh, the humanity!
We're going to take a break. When we come back, why I got just a little bit sad about the state of the world today while out walking Rosie the pandemic pup yesterday. And Guelph, what are you doing, Guelph, when it comes to curbside leaf collection? I'll tell you about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I mentioned during the Farwell Show 5 just a few minutes ago about that motion coming to Waterloo Council tonight to consider a new facility that would include a 50-meter competition swimming pool. Notice of motion tonight. Discussion will happen a week from now at the meeting on Monday, the 24th. I hope I didn't mislead you, but the motion will be tabled tonight as a notice of motion, the discussion to follow a week from now on the potential for a new facility and 50-meter competition swimming pool, which, as I said, has been kind of quietly talked about in the community for quite some time now and might be getting closer to becoming a reality. We shall see. While I'm on the subject of municipal councils, I hear you, Cambridge. I do. And it's going to be an interesting meeting tonight in Cambridge. Our ears will certainly be on it because, of course, we are into budget season. And with strong mayor powers, strong mayor budgets can be brought forward for council. But also what usually happens when that happens, even with a strong mayor's budget, councillors are able to bring forward amendments, at least proposals to amend that budget. And by all accounts in Cambridge right now, the strong mayor budget and the strong mayor herself is preventing those amendments from being brought forward. In other words, this is my budget and you're going to like it. Interesting, such interesting times right now in Cambridge. We will keep our ears on that meeting tonight to find out if councillors have found any sort of workaround to the problems they were encountering this weekend. But few little birdies filled me in on the effort to bring forward amendments to the strong mayor's budget that are being rebuffed by the strong mayor in Cambridge. I made my way into Guelph on Saturday for the Rangers game, Saturday night. On my drive into the city, Highway 7 turns into Woodlawn Road, just as you're coming past Wellington County, or the Wellington Brewery there. And Guelph had a digital sign on the side of the road there, just as you're entering the city limits, that told you that curbside leaf collection had begun on November the 10th. I think it was November the 10th. The point is, they're making it public by way of digital signage that loose leaf curbside collection has begun in the city. In other words, rake your leaves to the curb and let us come by and scoop them up with all the heavy machinery. We have to stop this madness. I couldn't believe it. I thought, Guelph, I thought you knew better than this. But the big digital sign, so anybody coming back home from wherever they were can be reminded by the fine folks in Guelph that loose leaf curbside collection is underway. I don't like that municipal service. I really think we got to stop it. You know, you can just leave the leaves where they are and everything's going to be just fine in the spring. In fact, the leaves will be important winter nutrients for your lawn. Go figure. And yesterday, while I was out walking with Rosie the pandemic pup, it was a beautiful sunny morning, but my gosh, was it cold because of the wind. It was so windy. And Rosie and I were walking through a park along a little path, and there was this little kid. I don't think he was 5. Either way, I'm guessing. But he had his arms spread out to his side, and he could feel himself being rocked by the wind, right? And he was just so expressive, and he's, whoa, whoa, and he's making the noises, and he's being blown around by the wind, and I thought it was the cutest thing. And the sad part for me was his dad didn't even know what was going on. Maybe it was an older brother. I think it was dad. I wouldn't know because the adult that was with this child having this moment of joy on a windy morning had his nose buried in his phone. Like he wasn't even looking up. His nose was just buried right in his phone as he walked along several steps ahead of this little boy who was just enjoying the world through a little boy's eyes. And this adult, it makes me sad that these phones have such control over us. What could possibly have been more important than just experiencing that moment with that little boy? We should all be that little boy and get our damn noses out of our phones. It really made me sad. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Is local democracy being threatened? And more specifically, is local democracy being threatened by the provincial government here in Ontario? You have probably heard before that municipalities are mere creatures of the province, right? It's like the province is the parent and the municipality is the child, and the parent does its bidding and the child kind of takes its medicine and does as it's told. That's why we often find ourselves applauding like trained seals when the smallest morsel of good news and or funding comes from the province to our municipality. To wit, I would point to the recent celebration of weekend GO train service for the region of Waterloo, which I think starts this coming weekend, in fact, but big, hairy deal as far as I'm concerned. One goofy train in each direction, beginning and end of every day, 4 trains total on the weekend. 15 years after the GO train service started, I think we're way behind on getting adequate levels of service. But there were our politicians locally standing around celebrating this as some sort of significant enhancement to GO train service for the region. Just one small example that still sticks in my craw. But let's get the picture of the story from somebody who knows it much more closely. That would be Regional Councillor Doug Craig, who's been around municipal politics long enough to see how these things work. Mr. Craig, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Mike.
How would you describe the relationship between our provincial government today and municipalities in this province?
Well, it's an adult-child relationship, and it's always been that way. And it's only getting worse. And I think you described it quite clearly in your opening statements about just the reaction from the province in terms of how they treat us and how they make a big thing out of small things that they do. It's not a good relationship, and it's been like that for decades.
What are you seeing, Doug, that makes you say it's getting worse?
Well, you see the interference of the province. And it doesn't matter which side of the issue you are on in terms of local issues. But when the province comes down and gets rid of speed cameras, when it goes into municipalities and it takes bike lanes, when it starts using the MZO, the Minister's Zoning Orders, to override local planning decisions, then what you're really seeing is municipalities simply becoming administrative outposts of Queen's Park.
When it comes to the speed cameras, Doug, I got to be honest. I think we made a mess of that file, and I'm kind of glad the parent came in to clean it up. Like, is this a case where we're misbehaving and we're getting scolded for it?
I don't know if you want to go down that route and suggest that. I think regardless of who's making the mess, I think the local politicians have to be held accountable by the public. And they will be held accountable next year in a number of respects for a number of issues. And I think that's how it's got to play out, not some heavy-handed coming down from the province.
I think that's a fair point. We do have municipal elections every 4 years. And the thing I think that is important to take away from a conversation like this is that our municipal government is the closest to the people and the most accessible level.
Well, that is quite correct. And it has the most direct impact on people. If the garbage doesn't get picked up or the water shuts off, then people feel the effects of local government. And I think it's unfortunate that the province continually steps in and tries to run local governments from Queen's Park.
The province also stepped in at the beginning of this most recent term for municipal governments back in 2022 and provided strong mayor's powers to the mayors of, first it was a few dozen, now it's more than 100 municipalities. But how have you seen strong mayor powers impact our community, Doug?
Well, what you're seeing locally, and as you're seeing in different parts of Ontario, is the fact that your elected councillors have been left out of the process with regards to budgets to a great extent, the appointments of senior officials, the dismissal of senior officials. These are all really very important aspects of how local government works. And local elected councillors have little to no say in any of these.
How can municipal governments get their power back, so to speak?
Well, I think what they have to do is to certainly point these things out publicly, as we're doing right now on your show as an example, but also publicly talking about the fact that local accountability has been diminished because it resides mainly in the hands of the local mayors in terms of how the budget is proceeding, how different aspects at City Hall are proceeding. And I think that's the unfortunate part. I mean, I don't want to use the word dictatorship. It's not that, but it certainly has impoverished the local elected officials on city council and on city councils.
Do you feel that today, Doug, in your role as a regional councillor, that your voice is not as strong as perhaps it was years ago?
Well, I'm going back years ago. I go back to 1976, and there was certainly a different attitude from the public in terms of municipal politicians. There was a greater respect at that time also. There was an understanding at that time that municipal politicians were accountable and could be addressed for the different things that are happening. I mean, right now, what's happening, especially at the regional council level, is the downloading of programs from the province without the funds that go with it, which makes the local taxpayer have to pick up the tab for all these programs. We're talking over $200 million that the province has downloaded. I mean, we're just simply becoming administrative outposts. Again, and I use that term in terms of what the province is doing to local municipalities. And the public doesn't understand to a great extent the impact, and the local politicians, especially at the regional level, get blamed for all the extra costs at budget time. And we hear this constantly.
So what is the impact you want the public to understand in this then? That they complain to the region, but the region says, I'm sorry, it wasn't us. The province took away speed cameras, for example?
Well, I think what the public has to, what I would like to see is the more interaction between them and the MPPs in terms of these are the people that are really pulling the strings on local government and the consequences, in terms of what's going on.
You and I have had conversations very much like this on a couple of occasions now. Are you optimistic in any way, Doug, that this will change under this current provincial government, or maybe if the government changes stripe?
Well, it's interesting. Local news headline was asking the question whether the premier was the premier of Ontario or the mayor of Ontario. I don't see it changing. I see it getting worse. They're talking about eliminating trustees, school board trustees. They're talking about consolidation of conservation areas. There's rumors floating around that, like other regional municipalities, we may have an appointed regional chair as opposed to elected. And that concerns me, and it should concern everybody.
Doug, thanks for raising the issue and joining us for a conversation this morning.
It's always a pleasure, Mike. You take care.
You too, sir. Bye-bye. Doug Craig is a regional councillor who represents Cambridge, one of two Cambridge representatives, along with Pam Wolf, on regional council. And of course, because she's the mayor of Cambridge, Jan Liggett gets a seat on regional council as well. That's how the regional council is structured. And as you know, Doug Craig has a long history, dating back decades, of involvement in municipal politics, including a lengthy run as the mayor of the city of Cambridge. But he's sounding an alarm here that municipal governments are becoming little more than administrative outposts. And I'll be honest with you, I can see where Doug is coming from in this regard. As much as I am supportive of the cancellation of the speed camera program, frankly, I think this new parent-school liaison that's being created by the province, which might ultimately bring to an end elected boards of trustees on school boards, I kind of dig that as well. The province interfering in the politics of a city, we'll use Toronto, for example, because that's where bike lanes were actually ripped out by decree of the province, overriding municipal planning and municipal decisions. Out go the bike lanes. And in the letter that Doug Craig wrote that precipitated this conversation this morning, he talked about the intervention of the provincial government in the City of Toronto green roof bylaw, which was, again, something where Queen's Park came in and said, you know what? The green roof bylaw doesn't need to exist. We're removing it. And that lessens Toronto's status, as Doug says in his letter, a, quote, world-class leader in environmental construction. Again, I can pick at things here that I like. I like that speed cameras are gone. I like the idea that we might be moving away from and doing away with elected representatives on school boards, because I don't think they have much power as it is. And frankly, I think they spend too much time quibbling with one another and too little time helping the parents. So if we have this liaison set up by the province and eliminate the trustee level, I'm okay with it. But I do get Doug's point. And I'll remind you, when the rubber hits the road, if you'll forgive the turn of phrase, we go to our municipal councillors, don't we? Frankly, we rarely go to a regional councillor because we don't differentiate a whole lot between regional and municipal. Heck, one of the other things that Doug mentioned, the rumors swirling around of an appointed chair for the region. I'm hearing similar rumblings, and you know me when it comes to the idea of an amalgamated single tier of local government. That's something else I also support. But I would love for us to create something that works for us as opposed to having something foisted upon us. So I get where Doug is coming from here. And he makes it very clear. Local democracy is under siege, says regional councillor Doug Craig. Do you feel this way? Is there too much provincial interference in municipal issues? Would love to get your thoughts on this. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
What's happening, especially at the regional council level, is the downloading of programs from the province without the funds that go with it, which makes the local taxpayer have to pick up the tabs. We're talking over $200 million that the province has downloaded. I mean, we're just simply becoming administrative outposts.
Regional Councillor Doug Craig joins us in the wake of a letter that he has written saying local democracy is under siege. Sue seems to agree, sending an email to Mike at 570news.com. People better wake up. We are under a Doug-tatorship. We are losing our voices. Who cares? Anyone? Anyone? In the famous words of Ferris Bueller's teacher, Ben Stein. Anyone? Anyone? Let's go to the phones, find out from you. James, good morning. Is local democracy under siege?
To a degree, and Doug's not wrong. However, in all things, there is evolution. And the way our region has grown and the numbers get bigger every year, you have to evolve. So where are we with our multi-level tiers of government, et cetera? It's expensive. And sometimes when things happen and the region and numerous others like Wellington County decided that speed cameras, just as an example, speed cameras, they thought these were going to be a great idea. Well, had they gone about it a little bit differently, they might have gotten a little bit better absorption by the public to go ahead with this. I point to one of the greatest democracies in the world that is famous for their incredible ability to protest. And you can probably think about this one. It's called France. When they brought in their speed cameras on their version of the 401, the speed limit there was 130. Well, that should be pretty much good enough for everybody. And then you want to go faster, go to the Autobahn. So what they did was, and remember, it's the people that do the protesting and it's the government that administer what the government does. They put up these signs. They were the size of gigantic billboards telling you a kilometer out that there's going to be a camera up ahead. So in that small example, in the microcosm that is the Waterloo region, have they used bright pink and fluorescent orange, larger signs? You're going to get a ticket for $200 if you do this, that, or there. They might have had better uptake on it. Now, with respect to our regional government, our local municipalities, 6 or 7 of them, look at that little island nation, which is nothing more than a volcano in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. There's 230 people living there. You can't immigrate to it, but it's a protectorate of the British colonies. What do you think they do? Like, they've got their coat of arms. They don't have a military, but they're a collective, and they have to do everything that they need to do to survive, to be there and exist. What do we need? 57 elected members to administer what needs to happen. I think tomorrow, if the region of Waterloo disappeared, I think there would be plenty of resources between the city of Kitchener and Waterloo to administer everything just fine. There you go.
James, appreciate it. An articulate argument, and kind of goes along the lines of something I suggested in the conversation with Doug Craig. Is this a case of the child misbehaving, i.e. not implementing the speed camera program effectively, and the parent, in other words, the province, having to come in and intervene? I don't know, but it sounds like that's where James is coming from. Sean, good morning.
Good morning. You know, what is it? The Washington Post said that democracy dies in darkness. I think that a lot of people like to complain. They complain to each other. I hear them talking all the time. They complain on your radio station. But when the rubber hits the road, do they vote? They do not vote. The turnout is abysmal. So like I said, people like to call you up and they complain about this and that. They blame the region for stuff that the cities have actually done. You know, if people don't like what's going on, they need to get out and vote. Next year is an election year for the municipalities. You don't like it, vote. Doug Ford can do this because he knows that people won't blame the province, so he just downloads. Simple as that. You don't like it, vote. That's the one thing I can say.
All right, Sean, from your lips to everyone's ears, I do hope, because he's not wrong, Sean, that our voter turnout is abysmal, particularly municipally. Mike, good morning.
Good morning. I'm number 37, Mike from Point Clark.
Farwell's Force official member. Nice to hear from you.
Yes. I believe your point on the children misbehaving is very accurate. Tonight, I'm going to Huron-Kinloss Council to talk about these conservation authorities and their overregulation of us in the rural areas. Do you know that if you dig a grave site now, Mike, you might have to have an Indigenous study done, or a environmental study done, if it's near a river or something like that? Mike, it has just gotten out of control. The policies are inconsistent, and right now, Mike, I have taken the action with a bunch of friends up here, and we've organized a petition, and we're taking this to council, the Saugeen Valley Board, and we're going, okay, guys, enough with the inconsistent decisions. What are your policies and stuff like that? Because we've had a whole bunch of misbehaving, Mike, and I could do a segment on this. But the issue is, if these people continue to misbehave, people are going to demand that the province step in. And that's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike. As far as conservation authorities are concerned, and maybe I'm just not hearing it, absolutely fair, because as hard as I try, I can't hear everything. But I didn't hear a whole lot of humming and hawing about making changes to conservation authorities because they were interfering with things. Sometimes I think it is the heavier hand of the province interfering where it ought not interfere. But on that note of conservation authorities, we know that we have the Grand River Conservation Authority here. And what we know of this proposed amalgamation of or consolidation of conservation authorities and the work that they do, there is currently a consultation underway as to what the proposed boundaries for this regional consolidation would look like. So we'll wait and see on all of this. It's early days. But if it's one thing we can be certain of, it's that this provincial government has had an interest in inserting itself in local politics. It's a very interesting time. All right, we've got to take you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then if I were to ask you who the radical is, would it be the new mayor of New York or would it be the head of Tesla? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You might recall last week we had a sort of an offhand discussion during the Talkback Hour about the isms. I've long said that there is no perfect ism. I don't subscribe to any of the isms particularly, but what led to the conversation last week, that kind of offhand conversation during Talkback, was my contention that while imperfect, every one of the isms, the one I think that serves us best is capitalism. And I know there are many who disagree, and that's what makes for interesting conversation. John Malloy is a former Liberal MPP and cabinet minister, and now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College in Waterloo. Joins us for a chat. John, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
I read your latest op-ed, and I was actually pleased that we seem to be in agreement that of the isms, capitalism doesn't do too bad a job of serving us, I think.
I mean, as I pointed out, I'm a pretty run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-road guy. I mean, I was a provincial Liberal cabinet minister. You don't get more sort of establishment than that. And sure, I recognize the importance of capitalism, and it's created a wealthy society, and it's lifted people out of poverty, and it drives innovation, and certainly it seems to have served us well.
It has. And then, of course, one of the keys to it, and you allude to this as well in your op-ed, is good government oversight. Because like the ism, any of the other isms, it could have a tendency to run amok if left unchecked.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's always been sort of the traditional, actually, I think the traditional view of all the mainline political parties in Canada. I mean, one of the biggest secrets that I'll just share with you and your listeners and no one else is they're not that different from each other, and most of them believe in capitalism and think that the government, to a lesser or greater degree, should have some oversight. But I think everybody, all three parties, believe that government has a role.
Okay, so with that as a starting point then, John, you point out that every now and again, something comes along that makes you step back and ask yourself if really you're on the right track with this belief system. What is it that's caught your attention and made you go, right now?
Yeah, I get, you know what, it was a combination of things. And the piece I wrote, it wasn't really, I won't say tongue-in-cheek or lighthearted, because I think in some ways it deals with a serious issue, but it was meant to be a little bit humorous. Two things happened in the same week. If you want to bring in the World Series, maybe sort of add that as a third piece. But one was the election of Mondami in New York, and the fact that the right wing went nuts about what a radical he was, how radical all his views are, how radical, this radical socialist. And the same week, we saw Elon Musk get voted a pay package of $1 trillion. And the shareholders cheered, and he danced on the stage with robots. As I said in the piece, you can't make this stuff up. And all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, have we lost sort of the plot of this? A guy running for mayor of New York who's promising free busing and child care and government-run stores to get prices down. You may think they're all a little wacky. They're not going to work, but at the end of the day, they're not particularly radical. You want to talk about the radicals? It's paying someone $1 trillion, and I brought in the World Series. I mean, it was exciting. I watched it, but I mean, some of those players over the course of their contract will be paid more than $500 million. Like, have we kind of lost it here? What do you do with $500 million? I mean, do you buy aircraft carriers? I mean, how many homes can you have? Once in a while, I think we got to say things are a little bit out of control here, and the real radicalism isn't, I think, on the left. I think the real radicalism is capitalism that's just gotten to the point where we're paying individuals $1 trillion. What does that even mean? I mean, what do you do with $1 trillion?
It's funny, John. I used to think that of $1 million when my favorite athletes were suddenly being paid a whopping $1 million for a year's service on the ice, on the field, whatever. I couldn't believe that anybody would ever need that much money. That's how old I am.
And I mean, and you sort of, I think all of us shrug, and I'm as guilty as the rest. But this may be the strangest analogy you've ever heard, Mike, but we don't allow human cloning in our world. You say, what does that have to do with anything? We made a decision as a society that human cloning is not going to be allowed. We could make a decision as a society. I'm talking about all, it would have to be across all countries, that there's a limit to this, that anyone who makes over $100 billion gets it taxed back at 100%. I mean, I don't know if I'd be shedding a lot of tears for people having to get by, having to scrape by in just $100 billion or $50 billion or $10 billion. I mean, the levels of wealth that are being amassed right now, they don't make any sense. They don't make any sense from a human point of view, and certainly when we see all the need in our society, they're saying some pretty disturbing things about out of control capitalism. And as I said, I was trying to be a little bit humorous, comparing, the Fox News reporters calling Mondami a radical, and everyone being relatively quiet on Elon Musk. But I think there's something bigger going on here. I think capitalism has gotten to the point where it's quite out of control.
And of course, you recognize in having a conversation like this, where you would, have the courage perhaps to suggest that anybody over $100 billion gets future earnings taxed at 100%, will bring out critics that say, hang on a second here, we need those people to aspire to the hundreds of billions so that they can continue to innovate, create wealth, create jobs for the rest of us, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but how are they doing that? I mean, I joked in the article, this will all pass the next time I make an Amazon order. But, many of these companies don't have the best track record as you go through. And there's also the question, if you want to fight this out on an economic level, there's also the question of competition. I mean, a lot of the wealth that's being amassed by these individuals is because they have virtual monopolies. I mean, if you go back 100+ years, you had crusading politicians who were breaking up huge companies, 100, 150 years ago, and actually creating a better playing field for the consumer. So maybe we should think about breaking up some of these huge companies. Maybe we should just start thinking about extreme wealth and saying there's a limit to it, or the extreme size. I mean, we have companies, it is no joke, that are bigger than countries. Is that healthy? I'm not sure if the fruits of their labor, it's making it that healthy as you see, Facebook and others come forward with the way they're manipulating people, the way they're targeting young people. I mean, there's not a lot of good stories to be told about these trillion-dollar companies and their owners.
I enjoyed the analogy you shared that your disbelief will pass quickly when you make your next Amazon order, thus supporting Jeff Bezos and his billions of dollars, and it just goes on from there. But I do wonder, John, because one of the things that fascinated me so much or intrigued me so much reading this latest piece is I've had the same thoughts go through my mind. I've had discussions with buddies over drinks on the back deck about this very thing. And again, we know who the critics will be and what the critics will sound like when we propose something like this. But how far down the line, getting back to what I wonder, have you thought about this in terms of where it all goes? Because for me, from where I'm sitting, and I'm not saying it's going to happen next week, next year, or even in the next 4 or 5 decades, but eventually, I truly believe if this is left unchecked, we will have the very wealthy and the very poor, and the poor will start a revolution because they're not getting enough of their share of the world's wealth. And there you go, civil war results. I don't know how far down the road, but I see that's where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting discussion to have. I forget the famous author who said that socialism will never take hold in the United States because everyone's sort of an embarrassed. They always said everyone's sort of but basically, I'll paraphrase. He basically said socialism will never take hold in the United States because everybody is just a potential multimillionaire down in their luck. It's hilarious. I wrote a piece. I think it was maybe a year ago, saying that maybe we should tax lottery winnings. And, everybody was up in arms. Why? Because someday you might be that lottery winner. You're not going to be that lottery winner. And you know what? None of us, I'm sorry to say this to you, to me or the listeners, probably none of us are ever going to have a pay package of $1 trillion. So why the public isn't more angry about this, I don't know. I really do think deep down sometimes, instead of a revolution, all of us are going to say, when do we get our chance to make $1 billion or $100 billion or $700 million or whatever it is? But not to be too dire, but the scenario you outlined, where there's very rich people at the top, there's these huge corporations who. This is a scenario many people are talking about that are using AI and other technologies to get rid of workers, and so we have these huge trillionaires and huge companies, and everyone at the bottom has no money. No one's going to buy their goods, and that could cause a problem as we move forward. And it's interesting. There are some commentators say, "Well, we'll just have a universal basic income, and those of us who are not owners of large high-tech companies will get a monthly check so that we can do our Amazon orders." I'm not sure where it all ends, but you know what? It was a year. I'm big with the quotes today, but Marshall McLuhan said, "We don't know who discovered water, but it certainly wasn't a fish." We're in the midst of it. We're in the midst of this system, and we turn on the World Series, and there's a baseball player who has a contract of $500 million, and we think that's kind of cool, and then we go and get a beer and some more popcorn. Maybe once in a while, and that's all I meant to do with this article, maybe once in a while we need to take a step back and actually look at the system and say how really bizarre it's become. Like the fish, we don't really notice it because we're used to it every day.
I think it's a very thought-provoking piece, and I really appreciate you making time for the show this morning, John. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
John Malloy is a former Liberal MPP and cabinet minister right here in Kitchener Centre. He is currently the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College in Waterloo. I find it, maybe it's just me, but I find a conversation like this fascinating. And maybe one of the reasons I find it fascinating is because I don't know the answer to it. And I don't know that I'm saying there should be an answer to it. But I'm so interested. And when we had this kind of offhand conversation last week during Talkback, Brett called the show, and Brett's an old friend who I like a whole lot, and he's one of the smartest young men I know. And he said that the conversation isn't going to be very productive because capital is always going to find a way to freer markets than where, the capital can flow more freely, et cetera. And because we were talking about this whole idea of how much wealth is enough wealth and where do you start, like John said, after $100 billion, do you tax it back at 100%? I'm not asking for an answer here. I don't know how you come up with one, but I wonder if you ever think about these things and stop and realize the preposterous nature of it all. A baseball player like Shohei Ohtani making $700 million, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., $500 million, and then, of course, the pay package for Elon Musk, $1 trillion. I remember back in the late 1990s working in Thunder Bay in a newsroom at a radio station there, and folks in Thunder Bay would travel across, because it wasn't all that far, really, into Minnesota State as a little trip across the border, and everybody at this particular time was fascinated by a Powerball lottery. I forget how big it got, but you know how the Powerball lotteries get in the States, right? Way beyond the tens of millions we get in lotteries here. And so a lot of people, we covered it as a news story, the people that were making the trip across the border into Minnesota to pick up Powerball tickets when they lived in Thunder Bay. And I challenged my coworker when we talked about this extravagant jackpot. I said, I could not spend $1 billion in a lifetime. I couldn't do it. He said, I could do it. And so I said, okay, go ahead. Let's start. You start spending your $1 billion. And, he did the usual things with this house and this camp and this vehicle and whatever. I said, okay, now you spent maybe 80 to 100 million. You've got $900 million left. How are you going to spend that? How much is enough? Again, I don't think there is an actual answer. Maybe you know one, and I'd love to hear it. But what do you think of conversations like this? Is there such a thing as too much on one side? Who needs $1 trillion? I'm open to just hearing things. Again, I think it's a productive conversation just to learn where you're at on issues like this. And I'd love to hear it. On the Mike Farwell Show, this is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The levels of wealth that are being amassed right now, they don't make any sense from a human point of view. And certainly when we see all the need in our society, they're saying some pretty disturbing things about out-of-control capitalism. But I think there's something bigger going on here. I think capitalism has gotten to the point where it's quite out of control.
John Malloy, former Liberal cabinet minister who represented Kitchener Centre as an MPP, and now is the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College in Waterloo, joins us to talk about capitalism, socialism, UMA, Oprah. I find it fascinating because I do think about these things from time to time. And as I mentioned during the conversation with John, my end game is ultimately an uprising on the part of the poor. Not tomorrow, not next year, maybe not even this century. I don't know. But when we look at the way things are going, but maybe to John's point, every person that is not accumulating great wealth right now in the United States is just a down-on-their-luck millionaire. It hasn't worked out for them yet, and that's why socialism will never work in the United States. But is it really a radical idea to call for such mundane things as having enough food and access to fresh water? Is that the radical idea? Or is paying somebody $1 trillion a radical idea? Beats me, but I love hearing from you on these things. Dallas, good morning.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Number 30 here.
Farwell's Force official member. Thank you.
Listen, I love this sort of conversation as well. I've said for years that the world is pricing itself out of business. And I hope I don't live to see it, but one of these days, it's all going to come crashing down. It has to. We cannot keep borrowing. We cannot keep, using money frivolously. Yeah, and you're right. Who needs $500 million over the course of 14 years?
Who needs it over the course of 114 years? But I like your point on the borrowing aspect of it, too, because you know that the more money we print, the less value there remains in the existing money, right? Jason, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I've been studying this for like 30 years, but I'm not that old. I was like a teenager. But what John had said, he was all over the place. But Elon Musk and the baseball players making $500 million, those salaries that they earn, they're voted on by the people that consume the services that they provide to the customers.
Absolutely. Capitalism. I get it. Sure.
Absolutely. Now you have a government guy whose solution is, well, let's take it from him. I tell you what, I'd rather have Elon Musk with $1 billion than the government with $1 billion, because he's going to make spaceships, go to Mars, make EV cars. Who knows what he's going to do? You give her the government, what are they going to do? And as your previous caller just said, everybody has debt. Well, what's that from? That's from the government. That's not from the free market. The free market has driven down prices for the last 20 years. Jeff Bezos and Amazon and the guys from Walmart, they've driven down the prices to almost nothing. Like the prices were double 10 years ago. So all this talk about taxing it, Elon Musk will just do what he did last time. He left California. It's like, here, I employ thousands of people. And the government said, well, give me your money. And he said, well, I'm going to Texas. So we know the answer. I don't know why people keep talking about this.
All right. Listen, Jason, appreciate the input. And I hear you. I might push back on the idea that nobody has debt in a capitalist society unless we bring in the other ism, consumerism, right? Because no matter how low the price, if we continue to accumulate through consumerism, we can accumulate that debt. But again, this is why I enjoy conversations like this. I find them absolutely fascinating. And quite frankly, I'd like to know what it feels like, $1 trillion. But honestly, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'll take $1 million, and I'd like to know what that feels like, because I think that would serve me incredibly well. But that's just me. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. As always, we continue right after this update from the 570 News Center. If you think violent crime is increasing, statistics might bear that out. And the Smile Cookie campaign underway for another year. Those conversations coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, as you just heard from Matt, yes, indeed, Smile Cookie Week is here. Devin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass today, just told me during that news update that there are Smile cookies in the newsroom. Nobody tells me these things. Well, I mean, Devin just did. I got into the newsroom, just 3 left. I'll tell you what, if there was a whole box of Smile cookies in this radio station and I didn't get my grimy little paws on one, there would be HE double hockey sticks to pay, I assure you, because sugar is one of my favorite food groups, as you know. But not only are the Smile cookies this week from Tim Hortons supporting the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, as you heard in that update with Matt, they are also supporting St. Luke's Place right here in our community. And the long-term care administrator there at St. Luke's Place is Maureen Toth, who joins us for a conversation. Maureen, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
I would love to start with a little bit more about St. Luke's Place, if we could. Can you tell us more about what you do?
So as you said, I am the long-term care administrator here at St. Luke's Place. So my role is to oversee the daily operations of our long-term care home and to make sure our residents receive the highest quality of care. And I also, work closely with our team to ensure they have the resources and support they need to succeed.
How are you funded at St. Luke's Place?
So we are funded through a mix of provincial government support, resident fees, and community donation. And fundraising is a big part of what allows us to go above and beyond for our residents. And those contributions certainly help us improve the quality of life and help fund major projects like our new expansion that we're going to be doing in the next few years to increase our beds to 192.
You talk about those residents, Maureen. Who make up the residents of St. Luke's Place?
So it's generally the senior population of our community in the Tri-City area, but certainly, we have people that come from other areas as well.
So what will the money raised during the Smile Cookie campaign help you do at St. Luke's Place?
So every dollar raised through the Smile Cookie campaign will go towards purchasing new state-of-the-art resident beds, and these beds are designed to improve safety, comfort, and dignity for the people who live in our home. It's really an important step in modernizing our care and making sure we can meet the growing and changing needs of our residents, for sure.
I mentioned a moment ago that there are Smile cookies here at the radio station today. I'm sure folks who visited their favorite Tim's this morning were also made aware. And I understand that at St. Luke's, you're having a kickoff party today as well. What are you doing?
We are. We're celebrating with a Tim Hortons drive-through experience in our coffee shop from 10 a.m. to noon today. So all our residents and tenants and staff will enjoy a Smile cookie and Tim Hortons coffee in a fun, festive atmosphere. It's certainly a great way to bring everyone together and kick off the campaign with some smiles.
I love that idea. Make up your own little drive-through experience at St. Luke's Place, right? Now, Maureen, you clearly know your stuff about St. Luke's Place, and you're terrific in your role as a long-term care administrator. But have you worked a busy drive-through before, Maureen? Can you call on any of those skills?
I haven't, but some of our team members are down at Tim Hortons as we speak, decorating up the cookies and all that. So, it'd be great if we were thrown in a drive-through too.
Absolutely, absolutely. How can our community help out during this Smile Cookie campaign to raise as much money as possible for St. Luke's Place?
It is so easy to get involved. Just purchase a Smile cookie at any Cambridge Tim Horton location between today and the 23rd. And each cookie is only $2, and 100% of the proceeds stay local to support not only St. Luke's, but Tim Horton camps. So
it must feel great to be one of the beneficiaries of this campaign.
Oh, it certainly is. We're so grateful for all our community support. It's certainly amazing.
So that's any Tim Hortons in Cambridge where we buy a Smile cookie this week. The money is going to St. Luke's Place.
Yep.
Easy. We're going to Tim Hortons anyway. We might as well just get a Smile cookie and help out a little bit more.
That's for sure. Every little bit makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Maureen, thank you very much for the work that you do with those folks in our community, primarily seniors. And thanks for making time for the show this morning.
Thank you, Mike.
Maureen Toth joining us, long-term care administrator at St. Luke's Place. I know that you heard during the news update at 10:30 and through the morning with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas on All News Mornings today too, that the Food Bank of Waterloo Region also benefiting from the Smile Cookie campaign this time around. It's the holiday cookie campaign. So when I went down to the newsroom, just so you know, I don't want you to be caught off guard, because I do love me a cookie generally, but a Smile cookie specifically, because it's that nice chocolate chip or chocolate chunk cookie with the icing on it. The holiday cookie, a little bit different. It's got some sprinkles on there, red and green. The frosting is white. No chocolate chips or chocolate chunks in the cookie, though. It's just your run-of-the-mill cookie with the sprinkles and the icing added. Make no mistake, it is still a delicious cookie. And when you make that purchase, because you're already at the drive-thru or you're in Timmy's this week anyway, well, you make that purchase and you are helping out a charity in your community. Yes, the Food Bank of Waterloo Region is one of those charitable organizations. We don't hear as much about St. Luke's Place, and we wanted to make sure that you knew that in Cambridge, any of the Cambridge locations of Tim's, when you buy your Smile cookie, you are supporting that great work at St. Luke's Place, helping out our senior community who are in long-term care and raising those important funds so they can modernize the facility, particularly the beds in this case, and make things even more comfortable for the folks that they serve. They're also having some fun today. They just got underway at St. Luke's Place, setting up a little Tim Hortons-like drive-through experience for their residents in their own coffee shop at St. Luke's Place. So it's kind of fun. I've had the chance in the past before, too, a couple of times. One is for Camp Day in June, where money is raised to send kids to the Tim Hortons camp experience, which is also awesome. But I've worked the drive-through or behind-the-counter window there, and let me tell you, that is some work. Like, y'all who are doing that stuff are doing the Lord's work, let me tell you. I come into your shop, pick up my cup of coffee to come here, sit on my fat derriere every day and talk into a microphone. You don't get a break. I remember being behind that counter and watching the line, and it's snaking from the door all the way up to the register. And finally, at one point, it starts to get shorter and shorter. And then there are 3 people, and then there are 2, and you think, oh, finally, I'm just going to breathe. And then, nope, then there's 5 more people in line. It just doesn't let up. I don't know how you do it, but you do. And I admire you for it. And then I've had the chance to do the Smile cookies before as well, back in the kitchen. They made sure I put my hairnet on. Yes, even me with the hairnet, and you decorate those cookies. And it's not as easy as you might think. And I know for a while, I haven't seen it in a bit, but maybe I'm just not looking hard enough. But it became a thing to post on social media, how strange, if you will, the smiley face on your Smile cookie looked. Is it an alien? Is it this? Is it that? And producer Paulie and I actually got to do the Smile cookies one time in the kitchen at Tim Hortons. It was lots of fun. Get out the old bag of icing and try to squeeze it just so. And you want your cookies to look good, right? It's your piece of art that's going out there to be sold. Anyway, when you're at Tim Hortons in Cambridge this week and you buy a Smile cookie, first of all, please do buy that Smile cookie, and proceeds from those stores in Cambridge supporting St. Luke's Place this week. Little sugar for you, little money for the long-term care residents at St. Luke's. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, you've probably heard the headlines, right? Violent crime is out of control in some cities. Certainly there are some political leaders who want us to believe that. Well, it turns out statistics may back up that claim. We'll talk about the new research coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I have no doubt that you've heard the headlines. Crime is on the rise. We hear from Premier Ford a whole lot about jail and bail, not jail, not bail, and all of these different things. Not to mention the fact that we are concerned about the level of safety, perceived or otherwise, in our communities. As it turns out, new data may back up that claim that indeed crime and violent crime is on the rise. Dave Snow is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Guelph, also a senior fellow with the Macdonald Laurier Institute. Dave, thank you very much for joining the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You co-authored a study on called the Urban Violent Crime Report, Volume 2. What did you find in this report?
What we found primarily was that we looked at violent crime rates across a number of categories across 20 of Canada's largest census metropolitan areas using Statistics Canada data. And basically, the headline is that over the last decade, looking at rolling crime rates, violent crime is up in just about every city. I think the violent crime rate is up in all 20 of the CMAs that we looked at, which are roughly 2/3 of the Canadian population, and the Violent Crime Severity Index, which measures the how intense and the more violent the crime, the more severe the index, that was up in 19 and 20. And we found a lot of surprises in terms of the size of the city. So places like Kitchener, for example, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, Census Metropolitan Area, its violent crime and violent crime severity actually increased the most of any of the 20 CMAs. We went by 71 and 76% over the last decade.
Can we determine as to why that might be the case for a census metropolitan area like Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo?
I think what our data show is that it's actually difficult to isolate why it's happening in some places rather than others. We can say, for example, it's still the highest in the prairie cities of Saskatoon and Regina and Winnipeg, and still tends to be lower in Ontario. But some of those smaller, and I'm not saying that I live in Guelph, so Kitchener is the big city where I live, but some of the smaller CMAs where we're seeing more considerable growth over the last decade, we don't have answers to why that's happening. Our goal with the report is just to take the Statistics Canada data, present it there, and let some of our policymakers and experts start to evaluate why and what can be done about it.
One of the things that stands out to me when you talk about this report and the data included in it, Dave, is that you're looking back over a decade. And we tend to hear headline numbers, if you will, on a year-over-year basis. But if we're looking at data now that gives us a decade's worth of information, it sounds to me like we may be looking at something closer to a trend as opposed to just a year-over-year headline.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's easy to get lost in year over year. So one of the things we do, we still have the year over year data in our report, but we do what we call 3-year rolling averages. So it sort of smooths out ups and downs throughout. And we also look at what's the trend over the last decade, what's the trend over the last 5 years, and what's the rolling trend over the last year. And we found the sharpest increase over the last decade. And what we say in the report is that's what Canadians and people in communities are most concerned about. If violent crime has increased by 76% in Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo over the last decade, and then leveled off in the last year, leveling off is better than still going up, but that's a more meaningful time period to look at and say, yes, crime in this community is certainly up compared to what it was a decade ago. If I could just add one more thing, a lot of times you'll hear in the media that crime is down from its peak in 1992. You always hear that term, 1992. Well, we went and calculated 40% of people in this country weren't even born in 1992. So we think that a decade is a much more meaningful time period for people to determine how crime has gone in their communities, rather than the fact that it used to be really high, it went down in the early 2000s and is now up. So that's why we've got 5 years, 10 years, and 1 year within the report.
When we talk about violent crime, Dave, that's kind of an umbrella term that encompasses a whole lot of different crimes. Are there any one of those crimes or ones of those crimes that stand out more in this report?
Yeah, absolutely. So I should say that the 6 things we look at are the violent crime rate, violent crime severity, and then homicide, aggravated assault, sexual assault, and robbery. And I should add, these are police reported criminal incidents. It's the data Statistics Canada uses. So it's not necessarily a crime that has gone through the criminal justice process and resulted in a conviction. With that said, the simple answer to your question is sexual assault. It was shocking to see the extent to which the sexual assault rate went up over the last decade in all 20 of the CMAs, and the extent to which it did. I think in Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, it's something like a 36% increase. But you've got cities like Montreal where it's doubled over the last decade. So while we see, the violent crime rate going up overall, and we see variation with things like homicide or things like robbery, sexual assault is the one clear area where it doesn't matter what urban area you're living in. Sexual assault has increased considerably over the last decade.
So what, Dave, is the underlying message here? What's the takeaway from a report like this?
The main takeaway is that this is this is bad and this is serious. I think that very few people would say that, I can't think of anyone that would say increasing violent crime rates are a good thing. And so we just want the data out there so policymakers and the public and the media can start talking about it, that this is a serious problem. We deliberately don't offer policy solutions in our report. We don't say we need to get tough on bail or we need to get easier on bail. We say, here's the data. It's pretty incontrovertible. We didn't make the data up. It comes from Statistics Canada. So we can look at where this is happening and where it's happening quicker, and we can get policymakers, police services, hopefully to just recognize the seriousness of the numbers and start having a debate about what can be done to reduce violent crime in our cities.
I love that approach, because the cold hard data is just that, right? This is what the numbers are telling us. You look at these police reported incidents, you compile a report like this for us and, of course, by extension, our policymakers to consider. When you do research like this and arrive at a result like this, Dave, what are your takeaways from it when you walk around your community, which is very similar to ours just down the road in Guelph? When you hear the other headlines, knowing what you know from this report, what do you take away from it? What does it make you think about?
Well, it makes me worried for my community. I admit I'm in a sort of an area of my community at the outskirts of Guelph that doesn't experience a lot of violent crime. But what I hear when I talk to just friends and families and colleagues, no one's particularly surprised by this. They say, yeah, this tracks. And for example, Moncton, I'm from New Brunswick originally. Moncton has the highest violent crime rate of the 20 CMAs we studied. That shocked me. People I know in New Brunswick say, yeah, that tracks. That sounds like what we've been experiencing over the last 10 years. And so what that tells me is that it's, there's no trick with the data. It's what people are experiencing. Why it's happening, people smarter than me will be able to speculate and look at that. But the fact that it's happening, it tracks with our experience. It concerns me as a member of my community, as a parent, and it's something that I hope that we can, as a country and as individual communities, come together and seek ways to address.
I think a conversation like this is helpful. I was so glad that we could make this connection after I saw the report last week. Where does it go from here, the report? Is it shared with policymakers in our federal government, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the media and communications team at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute do an excellent job of sharing this and having conversations. This is the second one of these reports we've done. The first one was with fewer cities using slightly different data, and we've had conversations with police services, with different members of the community. And I think it's just a matter of, I'm an academic, I work at a university, but we get Crown prosecutors coming in and speaking to our students in our criminal justice program. It's just about having everyone be familiar with this data, have this conversation, and then have conversations about what to do. Someone could say this means we need to invest more in at-risk youth. Someone else could say it means we need to lock up violent offenders for longer. Again, at least let's have those conversations. Let's look at experiences and what communities are doing and move forward from there.
Dave, really appreciate the work that you've done on the report and the time you've made for us on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Dave Snow is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Guelph and a senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. The report just released through the Macdonald-Laurier Institute finds that, as opposed to the focus on year-to-year fluctuations in crime, over the past decade, violent crime has increased significantly across Canadian cities. And one of the areas where it has increased the most, lucky us, right here in the region of Waterloo. I wonder, because we talk about it a lot, that 401 corridor and the access to this community from larger metropolitan areas. I'm looking at you, GTA. I wonder if that plays a part in all of it. And one of the other things that really strikes me in all of this is that the headlines are obviously not misleading us here. Now the work begins on the part of policymakers to determine how it is we're going to go about dealing with this. As Dave points out, is it spending more time on at-risk youth? Is it stricter sentencing for people involved in violent crime? One way or the other, we know what the data is telling us, and that is over the last 10 years, we've got a trend of an increase in violent crime. And that comparison to 1992, I find that fascinating. 40% of this country wasn't even born then, 33 years ago. Yeah, youngins, so they're not sure of using that as a measuring stick. Good piece of data that we get a chance to discuss this morning here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Make a big noise playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday. You got mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place, singing, we will rock you. We will rock you. Buddy, you're a young man, hard man, shouting in the street, gonna take on the world someday. You got blood on your face, a big disgrace, waving your banner all over the place. We will rock you. Sing it out. We will rock you. Buddy, you're an old man.
Tell me you didn't start clapping along. Go ahead and tell me you didn't start clapping along or stomping your feet. At minimum, you were tapping your foot along with the song. If you tell me otherwise, with respect, I'll call you a liar. That is the music that we choose. I don't need to tell you any more than that. That's the music that we choose to start this week in music history this week with our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison. He joins us every Monday morning at this time for a look at this week in music history. And don't forget, Brian's got a Facebook page of the same name that you should follow along. Hit the follow button. Find it on Facebook, This Week in Music History, and you get so much more, these tidbits and even more from there. Brian, as always, good Monday morning.
Good morning to you, Mike.
We played that song, and I know I don't need to say anything more about it because everybody knows it. It is that iconic, and it falls this week in music history back in 2006.
It sure does. It went on to probably, arguably, one of the greatest hits albums of all time. So in 2006, they did an assessment of which were the best-selling UK albums of all time. So this is just in England, of course, but what was the best-selling record in the UK ever? And it turned out that Queen's Greatest Hits, released in 1981, was the biggest selling album in England of all time. And in 50 years, it had sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 5.5 million copies just in England alone, which is a pretty incredible feat. And then when you consider that the band that's behind them at number 2 is the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, makes the record, I think, even more impressive.
And of course, along with We Will Rock You, I mean, just take your pick, right? Another One Bites the Dust, Bohemian Rhapsody, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. When you talk about greatest hits, this is exactly what we got from that album in 2006.
It's an outstanding record. Now, there's several pressings of greatest hits. There was a UK version that came out, and then there was a Canadian-American version, and then there was a reissue version. So the list of what the track listing for that record has changed a couple of times, but any one of them, I mean, you pick up and you, like you said, you flip it over and you see all of these songs that were just iconic. I mean, you can literally listen to this album front to back and know every song off by heart. I mean, to me, that's the litmus test for a true greatest hits album that's iconic. So yeah, the Queen just took it to the furthest possible limit with this album.
Neil Young's Decade, pretty damn good. The Eagles, Volumes 1 and 2, but more so Volume 1. I mean, really good. And you know I have to give a nod, even though they didn't call it a greatest hits, but Rush Chronicles is pretty solid too.
There's some great ones out there. And of course, the Eagles' greatest hits, the second volume of that was one of the best-selling albums ever worldwide. It sold, I mean, 40 million copies or something ridiculous like that. So it was an incredible record too. But yeah, there are collectors out there that aren't big on greatest hits albums in the vinyl world. There are people that don't like them, and they'd rather have all the other tracks on the albums. But I like a good greatest hits album every once in a while. It's nice to be able to put it on and just leave the needle there, and you're happy with every single song that you hear.
Absolutely. Okay, this week in 2017, sadly, we lost a great one, Brian.
Oh, one of the greatest to me, anyways. This is the day we lost Malcolm Young from AC/DC. And, of course, he was a co-founder of AC/DC, brother of Angus, played rhythm guitar, wrote a lot of the iconic riffs that we've heard over the years, and was a consistent member. He had a brief absence in 1988, but he was a member right up until retiring in 2014. He was starting to suffer the effects of dementia in 2014 and wasn't able to tour with the band any longer. And then we lost him in 2017, and it was certainly a sad loss. And I mean, they've recruited another family member to replace Malcolm in the band. He's solid as well, but everybody was always Angus, being the focal point of AC/DC. And as great as Angus was or is, to me, AC/DC was always about Malcolm, because those rhythm tracks on songs like Back in Black and Highway to Hell and so many others, just incredible rhythm guitar playing. I just think he was the best there ever was.
We would know the songs that he helped to produce, but we may not have known the producer as well. And this week in 2004, we lost Terry Melcher.
Yeah, and Terry, he was a big body on the scene in the late 60s. He was recording and producing some huge acts. He did hits by the Byrds. He did a bunch of records with the Beach Boys, and he co-wrote Kokomo for the Beach Boys as well. Produced Mr. Tambourine Man for the Byrds, a bunch of hits for the Mamas and the Papas. He was one of the biggest producers in the business at that time, and he sadly passed away in 2004. And his backstory is almost as intriguing. I mean, he lived much of his life from 1969 onwards in real fear, and the reason for that was in 1968, Terry Melcher was living in a rented house in Benedict Canyon. And one of his clients, Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys, introduced him to this quirky songwriter who showed some promise. And Melcher arranged for the singer to audition, and eventually secured him a recording demo session where he could record some of his songs. And the outcome of that was kind of lukewarm, and Melcher passed on working with this young singer. That quirky singer was no one other than Charles Manson.
Whoa, what?
Yes. He had recorded a demo for Terry Melcher, and Manson had attended several parties at the rented house that Terry Melcher had with his girlfriend at the time, Candice Bergen, the actress. The address was 10050 Cielo Drive. This house, after Terry moved out, was rented by Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. And of course, we all know what happened to Sharon Tate and 4 other occupants of that house on the night of August 8, 1969, when Manson instructed his family to go to that house and kill everyone inside, which actually happened. And the question has always been, was Terry Melcher the intended target? Because it was previously his house. Manson was very upset that he didn't get a recording contract, and Terry spent the rest of his living days looking over his shoulder because he was very worried about the family who was not in prison, the members who were still in prison, coming after him. So kind of a sad state of affairs for Terry Melcher, and sadly he passed away in 2004. But what a backstory.
Fascinating stuff. And it's these backstories, Brian, that keep us coming back for more of this every week. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Awesome.
Brian Allison is our good friend and musicologist. You like backstories like that? Follow along the Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. And we're not yet done with This Week in Music History. You know the old thing, I don't know if it ever actually happened, but it's shown up on TV many times. Is there a doctor in the house? Is there a doctor on the plane? Well, why did The Who have to ask during a concert once, is there a drummer in the audience? Plus, the 14-minute video from the 1980s that still remains iconic today, at least in my opinion, and the big hit from the 80s that was actually miswritten. We'll get to those stories and more as we continue This Week in Music History with Brian Allison on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning at 11 a.m., we're joined by Brian Allison, musicologist, who joins us for a look at This Week in Music History. Brian also has a Facebook page of the same name that I encourage you to follow along. Just find This Week in Music History on Facebook. You'll get these tidbits and so many more right on your desktop. Brian, this week in 1984, in fact, it was this very day. I almost started the show with this song, but I'm not a big fan. I have to admit, I know it was huge for the band, and it was a big song back on this day in 1984, but I didn't know that it was actually intended to be written differently.
Yeah, so Wham, you couldn't ask for a bigger band, arguably, in the mid-'80s. Just pure pop gold. They were spinning songs that just really resonated with young fans for sure. So it was today in 1984 that Wham went to number one on the UK album chart with Make It Big, and they also charted number one on the US singles chart simultaneously with the single Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, which was, of course, a huge MTV staple, big on Much Music, and it just filled the radio waves for months and months there, it seemed like, in 1984. Yeah, and the inspiration for the song came, George Michael, of course, wrote the song, and it was a note that his partner in Wham, Andrew Ridgeley, had left for his parents in the morning. He got up one morning when the two of them had stayed at the house and left a note. And initially it said, "Wake me up before you go," but he accidentally wrote "up" twice. So then when he read it, he thought, well, then I'll put two goes at the end just so that it looks like I'm being, funny. So the note said, "Wake me up before you go go." And George got up and saw the note and went, I could do something with that, and turned it into a song. And, of course, it became this big, big hit, kind of put Wham on the map internationally, and they went on to sell a whole lot of records in the 80s.
They sure did. Okay, let's go further back to a band I can really get behind, especially because of this album that you have described in your notes as a masterpiece, and I will never disagree. I think it's one of the best ever. This week in 1968, Thank You, Beatles.
Right. The White Album was released on November 22nd, 1968. So it was kind of a very, very difficult time for the Beatles at the time that this album came out. They had lost their longtime manager, Brian Epstein, just prior to that while they were in India. They were sort of floating around a little bit with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, learning transcendental meditation. And there are some splinters within the band, and, a lot of the record was actually recorded, individually with members of the band going in and doing some songs, and they ended up putting out this double record. And yeah, of course, the tracks, there's 30 tracks on this record, very, very varied amount, different styles on it, avant-garde, folk, blues, there's some ska, even some pre-heavy metal in there, really interesting stuff. And people loved it. People thought it was a great album. It was a great listen, and still is to this day. And some, outstanding tracks that Beatles fans just really still love to this day. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, you've got Obla Dee, Obla Da, Dear Prudence, and of course Blackbird, which is a huge hit. And the White Album topped the charts around the world, spending 8 non-consecutive weeks at number one in the UK and 9 in the US, where it became the band's highest certified album, 24 times platinum. So a pretty impressive record for sure, and still highly regarded. And then, some interesting stuff around it. That stark white design on the album cover, it was a very deliberate artistic statement. So consider the album before, which was Sgt. Pepper, colorful, all kinds of incredible artwork. And they went, no, this time we're putting it out as a plain white record with our name embossed on the front. That's it, and just the music to listen to, and we're going to see how people respond to it. And people responded very well to it.
No question, and still do. It is absolutely a masterpiece of an album.
it's a great one. I can listen to it any time. There's a few tracks that I've tired of over the years just because I've heard them so many times, but it's really, really a fantastic record.
When we were talking about Wham a few minutes ago, you mentioned how they were a staple on MTV, Much Music, etc. in the 80s because MTV and Much Music were coming of age, if you will, in the 1980s. But a 14-minute music video, Brian? Come on. That was this week in 1983.
It happened, and everybody will remember. It was November 21st, 1983, when Michael Jackson released the 14-minute music video for Thriller. It premiered in Los Angeles. Of course, it was directed by John Landis, who was famous for doing American Werewolf in London and Animal House and all kinds of other great films. And it really just paid homage to, some of Hollywood's biggest horror films. And then it had that great voiceover that Vincent Price did, who, interestingly, recorded his rap in 2 takes. He came into the studio, did that iconic bit in the middle in 2 takes exactly, and thank you very much, left the studio, and it became huge. So at the time, in 83, it was the most expensive music video ever made. At the time, it cost about $500,000, which when most music videos were budgeted at around $50,000, that was a huge sum of money. But, at first, MTV wasn't even sure if they were going to play it. They were like, okay, this thing's 14 minutes long. Like, who's going to sit for a 14-minute video? But they put it out. It went into heavy rotation on MTV, and it basically, defined that record, Thriller. So it was pretty cool. Trivia on it, Epic Records didn't want to pay for the video because they had reasoned that Michael Jackson had already had 2 huge videos, Beat It and Billie Jean, had put Thriller on the map. So they were like, what do we want to spend $500,000 on a video for the title track for? Like, your album's already doing really, really well. We don't need to do this. So Michael Jackson and John Landis funded it themselves. They paid for it, and part of the way they funded it was by saying, listen, we'll do a making of Thriller documentary, and MTV can show that, and Showtime can show it, and you guys can pay us for that, and that'll cover some of the cost of the video. And MTV went along with that, and that's how they also made the making of documentary, which was just as popular.
Love it. Great story all around. And speaking of great stories, I absolutely love this one from my favorite decade in music history, Brian. This week in 1974. What happened at the Cow Palace?
It's just one of those Keith Moon stories, right? It's one of the more famous ones. There's the story of him driving his car into the hotel swimming pool. The story of him accidentally driving over his chauffeur. But this one was one of the big ones as well. So the Who's playing on November 20th, 74 at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. Keith Moon literally collapsed on his drum kit. And there's video of it. You can watch it on YouTube. He's playing the drums, and he literally slumps forward and passes out mid-song. And the story was that somebody had allegedly spiked his drink with a horse tranquilizer. Now, there's been differing versions of this over the years. Some people say that Keith actually took the horse tranquilizer willingly because he was that guy. If you handed him some drugs, he took them immediately and didn't even bother to ask what they were. So there's quite a few people that were there that night that said, no, he took the horse tranquilizer quite willingly, passed out. So, of course, they have to finish this set. They've got a crowd to please. Pete Townsend steps forward and says, can anyone play the drums? And as luck would have it, this 19-year-old kid, whose name was Scott Halpin, was in the audience, hopped up on stage and replaced Keith Moon for the last 3 songs of the set, and played very well. If you watch the video, you're like, wow, this kid's a pretty good drummer, actually. So there you go. Keith Moon's out from a horse tranquilizer, and Scott Halpin was in. Interestingly, he didn't get an audition when they replaced Keith Moon years later. I thought they might circle back to Scott Halpin and say, hey,
yeah,
but come out and try out?
He'll always be the guy that says, I got up on stage at a Who concert and helped them finish the set when Keith Moon passed out on his drum kit.
I'm sure he's going to have Can Anyone Play the Drums on his gravestone.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Brian, thanks again for this.
Always a pleasure, Mike.
Brian Allison, a musicologist, joins us every Monday morning at 11 for This Week in Music History. Facebook page is the same name. This Week in Music History. I encourage you to follow it and get all of these great stories on a weekly basis. Speaking of music, we started the show today with Mary's Boy Child by Harry Belafonte. On this day in 1957, it was a number one hit and stayed there for 7 weeks, the number one Christmas song of the year. And it would actually chart in 2 different decades thanks to Boney M's version in 1978 of Mary's Boy Child. So you could say that Boney M covered it, right? I'm not going Christmas on you for All Request Friday this week yet, but let's do cover tunes, shall we? So this week on Friday, all request on the show, get a little bit of your favorite cover song played during the show. Just drop me an email, mike@570news.com, and let me know your favorite cover song for All Request Friday this week. An update from the 570 News Center coming right up, and then David Drewe is here for Drew's Views. He wasn't wrong about something last week, was he? We'll find out on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now, that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball. Like he'd never even had a secret.
That is our good friend, David Drewe. He owns Negotiating Change, don't you know? That's a company that's dealing with government relations strategies. Help you out in that regard. David is a former Conservative Party staffer. Worked for Harold Albrecht, Kitchener-Conestoga MP for many years. And he's with us every Monday morning, 11:30, to share his views with us. It's Drew's Views. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here.
You said that coming down the hall, and I'm happy that you're happy because you are in the midst of doing one of my least favorite things.
Moving.
Yep. Did it so many times early in this career, David. So many times.
I was a co-op student, so I moved every 4 months. So yeah, whenever friends are moving, I'm always offering to help because I have so much moving karma I still have to pay back.
Absolutely. I'm the same way, the same core of guys that were in this business. We've done
glad
this.
to hear you're going to be out helping tomorrow.
Wait, did I owe you? I don't think so.
No, karma, man. Karma's not one-on-one. Karma's putting it into the universe.
That's fair. We all stopped moving for a reason, David, but nonetheless. All right. I don't like to do this to you, but you've got thick skin. You know what you signed up for when you said yes to my wacky idea to have you join me every week on the show.
I am all about accountability.
All right. Well, let's get to it then, because last week we were talking about the budget and the major projects list that was to follow. And you said, well, let me just play back for you what you said, and then we'll see if you want to be accountable for this statement.
He didn't give us timelines in terms of anything. It was the first round was right before the Whatchamadigi. Then the next round was the Grey Cup. And then the third round's going to be right before the Stanley Cup. He gave us the calendar in sports championships. And so, yeah, we are expecting another round of major projects to come out. And somehow I think that's going to be a lot more attention grabbing than anything in this budget. That's why he can get away with it.
We got the major projects list. Was it more attention grabbing than what was in the budget?
It wasn't channel changing enough. It really, and this comes back to something we've been saying for a while. I've been saying for a while. You generally nod and agree. So I just don't want to put words in your mouth. But this government seems to have this big pattern of raising expectations and then either not meeting them or saying, but they're going to come later. And so here we are with, again, more mines, which are good, but you can't explain to the average voter how a 30-year nickel mine outside of Timmins is going to benefit an unemployed kid in downtown Toronto. Like, there's all of these good, I'm not criticizing the projects out there, but none of them seem to be of that nation-building quality that we were promised. And so again, it's not that these are bad projects, but they don't capture the imagination in any way. They are not going to making broad national headlines in any way. So yeah, the North Bay Nugget is going to be printing a whole lot about that mine in Timmins. There's a whole lot of examples like that, but no, there just was no real channel change from the budget. And I don't know what that means. Like, I don't think, I can't call it a government win, but they certainly didn't lose.
See, I'm with you on the expectations raised and then failing to deliver on the expectations that you raised, those hopes that you raised yourself. I will say, though, that when Mark Carney became Prime Minister, I was raising a Spockian eyebrow because these ideas are great, but you and I both know, David, how difficult it is to turn around that ship of bureaucracy in any government, particularly our federal government. So I was skeptical, to say the very least. I will say, and maybe they just need somebody like you to help out with government relations strategies here, I think you can sell that to the kid in downtown Toronto who's unemployed because it's happening here. And that's what excites me about this stuff. We are actually going to fast track things that will happen on Canadian soil, employ people in Timmins and the surrounding areas, etc. That kind of excites me.
No, that's just it. I'm not criticizing, but it's not, how many people in downtown Toronto are going to school for mining technologies?
Well, maybe they should.
Maybe they should. No, but we also, that's a cultural issue about Canada, is we have these natural advantages like natural resources, wood, forestry, fishing, oil, and we are like, yeah, but we don't want to get our hands dirty. So we have that as an issue as well. We tend to look down on resource extraction, and it's our number one primary advantage. But so the budget is going to pass quietly.
Of course it will.
I thought that this major projects list was going to be providing a distraction that was going to be pushing things through. But then I realized something. Nobody wants to take a pound of flesh out of anyone for letting the budget pass. So if all this, it wasn't until about 3 days after the last vote that you realized that a couple of Conservatives abstained on it. So, you know what I mean? The Liberals could have made a whole lot of hay out of that, but they weren't interested in it. So there's all of this going towards trying to get the budget through. The Liberals did not design this as an election budget. I'm sure they wouldn't mind running on it, but there's no micro-targeting in here that you are going to be able to put out on the campaign trail. They are basically running on Mark Carney's credibility if they run on this budget. But the bigger reason is the parties don't have their refunds from the last election yet. So riding by riding, if you get, I think it's 10% of the vote, you get 2/3 of your election expenses refunded by Elections Canada. But those checks haven't been processed yet. So riding by riding, nobody is in a position to fight an election right now. So it's going to pass. I have no idea how. If it doesn't pass, it's going to be the biggest accidental election in Canadian history. But that could happen, but I doubt it. There's going to be just enough of something, and everybody, like I think the NDP votes last. So they'll probably just be sitting there watching the room, and it's like, okay, so only 2 of us have to walk out. Oh, wait, no, that guy did, so 3 of us have to walk out now. Like, it's going to pass, and there's not going to be blood in the water tomorrow regardless of how it passes.
I would agree with that. I don't expect a whole lot of drama in all of this. Okay, there might be some drama when it comes to one of our big telecoms and concerning you. Why does Big Blue want you to cancel your current subscription?
Oh, they don't. They're going to drive me into it just to make the phone call stop. Like I said, I'm moving, so I had to transfer my services. It was a spectacularly easy first phone call with Bell Technical Solutions. But I realized I was speaking with someone overseas because they got everything right except Ontario. I live in Ontario, and I just sort of like, everything else sounds very, very like Canadian, except you sound like you're from Minnesota when you say Ontario.
Minnesota.
So all went great, but I have had more than 9 phone calls in the 2 days since from Bell Technical Solutions asking me not to cancel my services. And every time I'm explaining, no, I am not canceling my services. We are moving. Oh, would you like a home phone line? And it just turns into a sales pitch from there. So it got to the point where I was driving yesterday, and it happened, and my wife was listening to me on the phone, and I'm explaining to this guy why I am struggling to be polite with him. And he's like, oh, okay. I'll make sure no one ever calls you again. Do you want a landline? And I'm just like, Ken, you're cheesing me off again, Ken. So, yeah, I swear, though, if 3 times I've been told they've marked me down as do not call again, this is okay. And 2 times that's been ignored so far. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Before we take the break, let's go back to major projects for a second. I don't know if you want to break up the duopoly here with Rogers and Bell, or was there something more that you were looking for? Because, again, to go back to how we started this, you thought that the major projects list would be the distraction we needed from an ordinary budget. That didn't happen. But what did you expect? You wanted some fireworks, a little dancing? I'm not sure.
Well, let's go back to what we were expecting of this office. By the way, the bill was C5 that everybody was so upset about.
Yes.
That gave the government, they haven't used any of the powers in that bill yet for any of these projects. So we talk about the government fast-tracking these. It's helpful, I'm sure, and I'm sure they are doing things. But boy, oh boy, they spent a whole lot of capital on that bill for apparently no use yet. That's weird. But what were we expecting? We were expecting back then, a northern port, perhaps. If not a pipeline, specifically resource corridors. We were expecting something national in scope. East-West pipeline, or East-West energy. Like, these things that we were talking about were big, and they were national, and all the things we're talking about now are good. But again, they raised expectations on what it would mean for these big national projects. And really, I think the biggest impact these projects are going to have is they've brought the words, tranche and hinge moment into the vocabulary.
Okay. I never liked tranche. I think anybody who uses it drinks with their pinky in the air. But I love me a hinge moment. We've had too many. Enough with the hinge moments.
Well, it's having lived on the Hill, I was guilty of this just as much as they are now. But when the PM uses an interesting turn of phrase, it gets repeated annoyingly too much. And I was one of the people who repeated it back in the day when Stephen Harper coined a phrase. I would use it. But the problem with tranche and hinge moment is they're too broadly applicable, and people are using them way, way too much. And it's like, no, it doesn't make you look smart. It makes you look like a parrot.
Not everything can be a hinge moment.
Well, tranche. You never said the word before this year, and all of a sudden it's coming out of your mouth 3 times during the newscast. I'm sorry. You sound like a parrot. You don't like what's tranche mean anyway? I don't know.
Now you just made me think. What's going to be the word of the year? I want it to be tranche, but it won't be. It's going to be elbows up, isn't it?
Well,
could be hinge moment.
Well, do we have a Canadian word of the year? Aren't they generally American, like an international word of the year?
Maybe we don't. Okay.
Well,
you know what, David? Let's start one. Elbows up it is.
Elbows up, but that's a phrase, not a word.
Come on. Mick job.
Too many rules in my world.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules in your world. That world is David Drew's world. Owner, negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies. He joins us Monday mornings, 11:30, to share his views with us via Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show. We continue on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a Monday morning at a certain time, and it is at this certain time that David Drewe joins us weekly To share Drewe's views, David worked for many years as a staffer within the Conservative Party of Canada for former Kitchener-Conestoga MP Harold Albrecht. David now operates negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies. Continuing along the major projects list or idea, does the province of British Columbia get any friendlier towards these ideas now?
Yeah, David Eby just got through a leadership review.
Our good old premier, good old Kitchener boy.
Kitchener boy, UW grad.
St. Jerome's High School attendee as well.
And
I presume he graduated from there. I mean, if he made it through the UW afterwards.
Well, that's what I said, if he made it into UW afterwards,
yeah.
But I don't know, maybe he moved.
Yeah, I don't know either. He might have moved. I think he graduated out.
Yeah, he just got through his leadership review, and as with all parties, we were just talking during the break about the Conservatives. You know, the members tend to be more hardcore than the general supporters, and the people who show up at conventions tend to be more hardcore than the members. So he survived. He, therefore, has a lot more room to maneuver, because the next audience he has to worry about will be the electorate. And that's not for a while, but even so, the electorate is a lot more willing to be flexible on things like, say, a natural gas pipeline or an oil pipeline to the northern coast. But I don't think this is going to change. I really do believe that he sees what they have in British Columbia as fragile in terms of the consensus on the gas pipelines and the gas routes they already have. So if all of a sudden another pipeline comes through, he is very worried that what they have will be put in jeopardy. So I'm not sure that his poker position is going to be changing all that much at all. He might have a little bit more room here and there, but the fundamental position about the North, he might be more willing now to say, well, if the First Nations along the way agree, I will buy in, and just pass it off along there. But you know, short of those 200-odd nations unanimously agreeing to this, I don't see him coming on board.
Even though his leadership is secured?
Even though his leadership is secured, I think he disagrees that the possible benefit is worth the risk of trying to put another pipeline through these territories. Because if the consensus falls apart, it falls apart on everything.
Okay, let's talk about the leader of the official opposition. And we talked about him a little bit on Friday during the Friday 4 roundtable, of which you were a part last week. Does Pierre Poilievre need to take a different tack this time around?
See, that's where we sort of, if you listened on Friday, that's sort of what it sounds like we all agreed on. And as I was driving home, I was rumbling through my head, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's the impression I wanted to convey. I can't speak for the others, but you know, when he ran for the leadership of the Conservatives, it started off with, well, he's got these rallies, he's got the social media following, but are they going to turn up in the crowds? And then he starts getting the huge crowds. It's like, well, he's got the crowds, but are they going to show up and get memberships? And then the membership numbers come out. It's like, yeah, he's got the memberships, but are they going to come out and vote for him? And then he wins 80-some% against Built to Win Charest. And then it was all the same thing about, but can he do it with the general public? And he was the same schmuck I was talking about on Friday as he is now, all the way through. But he has this habit of finding issues and being prescient on them. And if he's able to do that again, he's perfectly positioned to start exploiting. Two of his problems are Carney's not engaging with them, but the other one is that he keeps looking backward to poke at Carney rather than looking at Carney to poke at Carney. Sooner or later, Carney's going to have a couple issues on the table. Sooner or later, there's going to be a bit of a scandal. Why does he need to change? Because the Liberals will revert to form. And that's not me saying it. That's me picturing the brain trust.
I think that's very fair. Very fair. Having said that, though, and this is where I think he has to change, because it didn't work the last time. And the way was clear, David. We know it was clear. This was Pierre Poilievre's election to lose and he lost it. And dare I say, in spectacular fashion, because he lost his own seat at the same time.
Okay. That's what Jane said on Friday, too, and I think if I raised my eyebrows in the same way then. He didn't lose it in spectacular fashion.
Yes, he did.
He got a record number of votes.
He lost.
So
that's what makes it spectacular. You got a record number of votes, and you still lost.
Okay. So, spectacular we were attaching different meanings to. He lost in a very interesting way, yes, but it was not a huge loss. It wasn't a Kim Campbell loss.
I get you.
It was incredibly close.
And it was so close he could taste it.
So close we could all taste it.
So if
a lot of people had a sour taste in their mouth, assuming the worst.
So if you couldn't win that way, surely you don't just run it back.
But it's the perfect storm last time.
Interesting.
No, but that's just it. And I'm not convinced. I'm not saying, but it's not as simple as saying he needs to change, because, conservatives are in the low 40s right now. Well, what if he changes and they go to 38? That's just it. We saw the poll where they had all the other people up against Poilievre, and nobody would do as well as CPC leader. There's risk in change.
Yeah, indeed there is. It's always fun. Interesting speculation on the spectacular nature of the last Conservative loss. Thanks for being here, as always.
Spectacular Spider-Man, I keep thinking.
It's real, and it's spectacular. David Drewe, every Monday morning, 11:30, with Drew's Views on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
On Mondays, our Talkback Hour is known as Rant or Rave. You rant because you're upset about something. You rave because you're not. You want to sing someone's or something's praises. This is the place for you to do either of those things. Share your rant, share your rave. Our phone lines are open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I love seeing my phone lines light up even before we play the music to get this segment started. That means you've got something on your mind that you want to share. And I love that. It's my favorite thing. As opposed to trying to move you in a certain direction, I just want you to bring the conversation here, because if it's important to you, it's important to us. And I just love the different directions that you take us during this hour. So feel free to be a part of the high wire act that it is. We don't have a net down below. There's no safety net here. It's live, and it's started by you, the conversations for the next hour. Couple of quick things from me just as we get underway. One is a reminder, if you don't have them yet, please take a moment today, maybe even right now, because all it takes is a moment, to get your 570 News Radio Tree of Hope 50/50 raffle tickets. This is in support of Family and Children's Services of Waterloo Region. We do it every Christmas. Why wouldn't we want to help out those families in need, right? So Family and Children's Services, Waterloo Region, the beneficiaries of the 50/50 raffle, there is a $50,000 take-home prize in that jackpot right now. That's the minimum you're going to win. I know the jackpot's going to get even higher, but all you need is $10. That's the entry point for tickets. You can buy more if you like. In fact, I'd encourage you to do that if you're able. But get in on the raffle at FACS5050.com. FACS5050.com. There's a button right there that says buy tickets now. Boom. You're in, you do it. And for as little as $10, you're in the raffle for that $50,000 prize. Plus our first early bird draw being made this Friday morning is a Kitchener Rangers VIP experience. You'll get a signed stick by the entire roster of this year's Rangers. You'll get a meet and greet one-on-one personally with a player. And Josh Piercy and I are going to make room in the broadcast booth for you. That's right. Right there beside us in the David Schooley broker with Remax Twin City broadcast booth is a chair with your name on it. You can join us for a broadcast. You can even call part of the game if you're up to it. And that's just the early bird prize. You could win that early bird and still the jackpot, and you're helping out Family and Children's Services of Waterloo Region. So please help us out with the annual Tree of Hope 50/50 raffle, FACS5050.com. And while we're talking about the Kitchener Rangers, this is the week, you know. Sometime in the next few days, we are going to find out if we, as a community and as a hockey franchise in the OHL, will be hosting the 2027 Memorial Cup. Just a few days. The CHL says it will make the announcement before Friday. Could come as early as Wednesday, if you ask me. Either way, sometime this week, we're going to find out if we're the hosts of next year's Memorial Cup. It's either us here in Kitchener or them over there in Guelph. One of the two communities will get the award announced by the Canadian Hockey League later this week. All right, right to the phones we go now for Rant or Rave. And we're going to start with Dave, Farwell's Force, member number 47. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'd like to give a giant rave to the Holman team.
Curling.
For winning their 20th over the weekend.
Their 20th what?
Well, you're going to ask me a name, but they got the initials for a cup, and it's their 20th. They're the best in the world.
All right.
Curling.
Yes.
Women's curling, and hopefully they'll qualify in the next competition to represent Canada in the Olympics.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that.
Have a great day.
You too, sir. Dave always keeps us up to date on all of the sports. I follow my Toronto Maple Leafs. I follow my Kitchener Rangers. I follow the Blue Jays when they're in season. But I'll tell you what, Dave keeps us abreast of everything. We should give a shout out to the Cambridge Redhawks. 20-0. What the what? 20-0. The Cambridge Redhawks in the GOHL and the Holman Rink. Dave wants to remind us of their 20th title. There you go. Mary is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Mary.
Number one, checking in.
Number one, Farwell's Force official member number one.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking in.
A force for good.
A force for
change.
And?
A force for reckoning.
To be reckoned with. You got it, Mary.
Okay.
All right.
I'm on the money. Anyway, this is not earth-shattering at all. But you know what? I watched The Wheel.
The Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah.
Okay, with Ryan Seacrest. How do you feel about Ryan Seacrest as the host?
I think he's cute.
I like Ryan Seacrest. I've always liked Ryan Seacrest. I don't love him as the host. I don't know.
Oh, no. Well,
you think it's okay?
I think he's okay. And
okay.
Of course, Van is super. But one of the prizes on the show, it must have been Friday, I'm not sure, was a trip to the resort in Salmon Arm.
What?
Yes. What?
Come on.
What?
Come on with your coming on.
No. And they showed the pictures worth $8,000.
I'll be darned. Do you get to go houseboating?
What?
Houseboating. That's a big deal out there in Salmon Arm, the Shuswap Lakes.
Well, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But when I heard Salmon Arm, I said, hey, that was a shanty town where Mike's was broadcasting.
You really are on the money today, Mary. That's exactly right. August of 1996, I moved out there.
Okay, yeah. So my ears perked up, and I said, I gotta tell Mike. Now I'll just carry on with one more, but that's a big deal.
Okay.
The guy called in and said the people that complain don't vote, and I don't agree with him. I complain and I vote every election.
Good job by you, Mary.
Well, yeah. So that's too much of a broad stroke for me.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, yeah. So, and you know what? I felt sorry for the Rangers.
Me too. 3 in a row, Mary. We got to sort this out.
Well, I felt sorry for you.
Thank you. Why? I wasn't playing.
No, it's your team. Okay, go Rangers, go. Bye, Mike.
Bye, Mary. Thank you for that. I do get sad when the Rangers lose. I do. I need to not take it so hard, but I take it kind of hard. So I'm working on that. That's a me thing. But the Rangers have lost 3 in a row. We play Guelph again tomorrow night. So come on down Highway 7, Guelph. You beat us in your barn on Saturday night. We'll see how we do back in Kitchener tomorrow night. Just thinking on Wheel of Fortune. That is pretty cool. Who knew that I used to live in a place that was an $8,000 vacation for some other people? But do you remember back in the day on Wheel of Fortune when if you won the game, you went shopping with the money that you had? They had all these displays set up with price tags on them and you'd spend the money that you won and pick the things out. That was kind of interesting. And speaking of new hosts, again, I've always appreciated Ryan Seacrest as a broadcaster. I haven't warmed up to him on the wheel yet, as Mary calls it. Not that I watch it a lot. But come on with your coming on. Ken Jennings. I mean, Alex Trebek was the man. Ken Jennings is great, I think, as the new host there on Jeopardy. I watch that one as often as I can. Tony is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Well, been better.
Okay, what's up?
I got a little bit of a rant today.
That's allowed.
I went to the game Thursday night to watch the Leafs. Paid $150 to get disappointed.
Yeah.
And I was watching it Saturday. And you know what I've noticed, Mike? It's their body language says a lot. It's like these guys give up. They have a little adversity, and they just give up. And I just read an article today how they're talking about the coach. You know, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but when are these guys going to start, taking their own accountability? I mean, they're blaming everybody but themselves. I don't know, Mike. What's your take on that? I mean, really? I mean, they keep on blaming everybody, but they never say it's them.
Let me just throw it back to you with a question, because I hear where you're coming from, and I feel it, Tony. I do. I get the same sense with this group of players. But here's what I'm starting to think. I mean, the Matthewses of the world and the Rileys and the Nylanders are still awfully talented. Could you imagine if we just do hold the players accountable and say this isn't working and we trade them all or whatever and we start over again? I can't imagine that, Tony. I can't imagine.
No, I don't think they should be starting over. I really don't. But I don't know. Maybe it's time for Riley to move on. I mean, we just don't have the defense that we should have. I mean, Matthews is talented, absolutely. But I mean, you might get some calls on this. But if it came between a fair trade between Matthews and McDavid, I would take McDavid in a heartbeat for Matthews. I don't know. Just McDavid plays with a little bit more heart and a little bit more passion. When I was at the game Thursday, I'm just watching these guys. When they were doing okay when it was the first period, second period came around and they tied it up. Their body language, just watch them when they're on the bench. They heads down, just kind of yelling. I wouldn't say yelling at each other, but you can see them talking to each other. It's like, guys, I mean, head up, let's keep going. They just give up too easy. That's just my take, Mike.
All right, Tony. Thanks for sharing it, buddy.
Thanks,
Keep
buddy.
the faith. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye. Listen, I've given up on my football team this year. Only not forever. The Pittsburgh Steelers will always be my football team. But mainly because all of the things that I said at the beginning of the season would happen to this Pittsburgh Steelers team is happening. I'm like, why didn't you listen to me? Management, why? It's frustrating. I'm true blue. I'm never giving up on the Leafs either. And you want to talk about blaming one another. You remember the guy that really did the blaming of one another last season in the playoffs? That famous slow motion, easy to read the lips of Mitch Marner during the playoffs when things were not going well for the Leafs and he was yelling at his teammates. So we got rid of him. Okay, now Tony says maybe we got to get rid of Morgan Riley. And straight up, Matthews for McDavid. How about we find a way to get McDavid to come over and play with Matthews? What about that? It's not like we can't afford it. But I share your frustration when it comes to the Leafs. And I do feel as though maybe sometimes they don't have that jam, that intestinal fortitude to face the adversity. But it's still really early. I'm feeling it with you. I'm feeling it with you every bit of the way, okay? But I'm going to keep the faith. Leafs Blues tomorrow night. Every next game is another chance to snap the losing skid, 5 games now, and get back on the right track. Let's go, you Maple Leafs. Speaking of Mitch Marner, of course, we let him go and he signed with the Las Vegas Golden Knights. It was with the Las Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday that Kitchener's own, that's right, our very own hockey son, Braden Bowman, scored his first National Hockey League goal. That's pretty cool for a kid from Kitchener. That same kid from Kitchener, Braden Bowman, was the coach of the Guelph Storm for a season as well. So there you go. Congratulations to the Bowman family. I'm sure they're still celebrating Braden's first NHL goal. This is Rant or Rave, where you start the conversation. Tell us what's on your mind, get it off your chest and onto the air. Rants because you're upset, raves because you're not. They're both welcome here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I got an email here from Clinton, Farwell's Force member number 35. Speaking of which, 230 now members strong is Farwell's Force. A force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. Curiously, I find this interesting. The last 3 names to go on the official membership list of Farwell's Force: Shane, Sean, and Sean. Your name doesn't have to start with a sh to get on the list. It can. It's just 3 in a row have started that way. Shane, Sean, and Sean. Different Seans. I'm not cheating. The list is legit. And all I ask in return is 15 minutes. 15 minutes a day. I would love for you to listen more. By all means, join us for the full 4 hours. It's a hoot every day. You might learn something. You might get frustrated by something. You might get a chance to call in and have a conversation. But if you listen for at least 15 minutes every day, it has to be consistent every day, more than happy to add you to our ever-growing list. A force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. That is Farwell's Force. And Clinton, number 35 on that list, his email to Mike at 570news.com concerning the vote on the budget that's happening today. Why do members of Parliament vote publicly rather than through a secret ballot system, Clinton asks. Seems to me that public voting often pressures MPs to align with party leadership, even when it may conflict with their personal convictions or the interests of their constituents. Take Liberal MP Nate Erskine-Smith, for example. He's been openly critical of the current budget, yet I suspect that when it comes time to vote, party discipline will prevail and he'll support it regardless. I think it's an interesting question, Clinton. I think that the votes should be public so that we know. In fact, I would demand that the votes be public so we do know how people voted. And I would hope, because I thought the same thing about MP Erskine-Smith, he has been critical of the budget. He is a Liberal MP. I hope he does vote with his conscience. If he can't find enough in the budget to support, then vote against the budget. I would hope so. I understand your point about party discipline. But the bottom line is I think the votes should be public because as constituents, we need to know how our representatives voted. So if we don't like the budget and they vote in favor, we can say, why did you do that? That doesn't represent my point of view, and then we can have a conversation with them about it. Let's go back to the phones here. Rant or Rave. Dallas, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Number 30 back again.
Farwell's Force, member number 30. Good afternoon.
Hey, I got to tell you, off the top of your show, you were talking about WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yes, I was.
I loved that show, and honestly, I think the Great Turkey Drop was probably one of my most favorite episodes. I actually, after I listened to that little segment of your show, I actually YouTubed it and watched it.
Yeah, boy. Oh, you had a good 30 minutes, didn't you?
I laughed my posterior off. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Good day, my friend.
All right, Dallas, you too. I am a fan. In fact, it's one of the reasons I got into radio. WKRP in Cincinnati had such an impact on me as a TV show. And I'm sure even if you weren't a fan of the show, you probably know of the Great Turkey Giveaway, an ill-conceived promotion where live turkeys were dropped out of a helicopter. WKRP is a fictional radio station, okay? So this didn't really happen. But the poor general manager of the radio station who came up with the cockamamie idea, or as I like to call it, a wackadoodle idea, finished the episode by saying, "As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly," because those turkeys did not survive being dropped from the helicopter. The great WKRP turkey giveaway. Marianne is on the phone with us for Rant or Rave. Hello, Marianne.
Hello, Mike. I just have a very brief comment. I was disappointed last year at the end of the season the way Marner reacted. He is a very good player. But my thought is, who do you think is responsible for making Matthews as good as what he is? Marner did an awful lot to help Matthews get to where he is. That's my opinion. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marianne. Have a great day. And I think Marianne's right. Whether we liked how Mitch Marner reacted or not, I think we might even be seeing a little sign early this season of the loss of Mitch Marner. And what does Matthews do without his buddy setting him up for all those goals? Hang in there, Leafs fans. Things will turn around. And hang in there, Farwell's Force, because we're just going to get you an update from the 570 News Center and then continue with your rants or raves here on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, Talkback is reserved for your rants and or raves. Make the phone call and rant because you're upset about something. You just need to get it off your chest and onto the air. Or rave because you want to sing someone's or something's praises. No raving for the Maple Leafs in this hour so far, but maybe you want to. Maybe you can still see a half full glass. Not cup. I didn't say cup. Not when it comes to the Leafs. But a glass, maybe. Let's get right back to the phones and hear more from you. Rant or rave to Cam. Good afternoon, Cam.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
We were talking about the Leafs, been watching them this year. I just feel there's something going on behind the scenes. They're missing a little bit of jam. There's a little bit of character missing because, yeah, you lost Marner, but you didn't lose a lot of guys. You brought guys in, and they don't look like the same team to me. Like something's going on.
I think the goaltending situation with Joseph Wall being away didn't help, and don't forget the injury to Chris Tanev, Cam. I think that's a big part of it too.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I do, and it's no disrespect to Solars too. He's a good goalie. He deserved what he got, but maybe he hasn't performed. But I just feel like this team is not. They're not doing what maybe we expected. Maybe we over-expected what they should do, but who am I to say that, right?
Yeah, you know what? Don't we always do that, though, Cam? Don't we always expect more? We always hope. Every year we're hoping this is it, right?
Oh, amen to that, Mike. Amen. We always sit there praying that this is the year. And I got my lawn chair out, and I'm sitting there at Maple Leaf Square. But, here we are.
Hang in there, brother. It'll turn around, okay?
Yeah, God bless. All right, have a good day.
Thanks, Cam. You too. I love... Listen, what are you going to do? I did notice this, though, about myself this weekend, and I'm not super proud of it because I'm not on the ice, but I'm starting to take it personal. For whatever reason, when I got to Guelph on Saturday, and I love going to Guelph for Rangers games, I really do. I've got a soft spot there. I've told you before. That's where I started my OHL broadcasting career. Some of the same faces I still see every time I go there, and I love it. They're really good people. Gosh, one of us is going to get the Memorial Cup. The announcement's coming this week. And anyway, I love you, Guelph. I really do. But I was getting the gears from everybody. For whatever reason, it just turned into the pick on the Leafs fan day in the media room, in the press box, and I was giving it back, and I wasn't very kind. But I realized I'm really starting to take this seriously, aren't I? I guess I am. Hey, Leafs, can you do better? Because you're making me cranky. How about that? Preston Paul, Farwell's Force member number 45. Good afternoon.
Oh, the humanity of it all. Oh, no.
As God is my witness, Paul, I thought turkeys could fly.
Yeah, I'm talking about the hockey on the weekend.
Uh-oh. Little suckers have got wings. Why don't they use them? The hockey was tough all around. No Leaf wins, no Ranger wins. What's going on, Paul?
That's what I
was going to ask you, Mike, what's going on with those Rangers, man? Wow, I couldn't believe that.
It's a tough one. They're having a little bit of trouble scoring goals right now.
And those Leafs, they look so disconnected. I'm glad I got other stuff to watch.
It makes you wonder why you're a sports fan, doesn't it?
Oh, you jump off the bandwagon, Mike, and it makes the losing a lot easier. It really does. And, it's different with the Jays because my heart is ripped out. But with the Leafs, I jumped off that bandwagon, and I expect them to lose. And when they do lose, I feel good about it.
I might take that advice, Paul. I might.
All right. You have a good day, Mike.
Thanks, buddy. You too. Instead of watching sports last night, not even the National Football League, I just put in my DVD of old episodes of Magnum P.I. That's right, a DVD. And I got to admit, I've become such a millennial. Actually going through the process of inserting a DVD into the player and setting it up. Why can't I just click buttons and stream it? This is the kind of person you've turned me into, technology. But yeah, I'll take Thomas, TC, Rick, Higgins, Zeus, Apollo, and the rest of the folks at the King Kamehameha Club over the Leafs right now. Not that there was a Leafs game last night, but I'll probably watch Magnum tomorrow night too. Brenda, you're next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
I have a rant on gun violence. Another shootout in Waterloo, and this is getting ridiculous in my opinion. This is how I feel about gun violence. It's ridiculous. Why aren't the people in Ottawa who are negotiating with that thug in the United States demanding he stem the flow of guns from the United States? That's where they're coming from.
Yeah, you know what, Brenda? And if he wants us to stem the flow of fentanyl south, then he darn well should be stemming the flow of illegal firearms north. And about those two incidents, we had the one in Puslinch in and around the Morriston area that Wellington County OPP are looking into, and then in Waterloo, where it's believed two vehicles were involved and the occupants of the vehicles were shooting at one another. And in both of these instances, we get the message from police that this was targeted, so the general public is not in any danger. So I get that. Like, it's not that we should be afraid of walking down the street and having somebody indiscriminately shooting at us, but I found it unsettling. This morning, I get in my car to come to work, and it's the first thing I hear on the news, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, no, I'm not worried about being shot while I go to work today or shot at, but the fact that there are people in my community, who doesn't know the intersection of Weber and Bridgeport? And the fact that early Sunday morning, call it late Saturday night if you want, the occupants of two different vehicles were shooting at one another. Why are you in Waterloo? What are you doing? I found it a little unsettling this time, kind of frustrating. So I feel you, Brenda. I feel you. Mike, Farwell's force number 37 from Point Clark. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm going to rant about this federal budget process here. Do you remember Joe Clark, Mike?
Of course. I met him on a ferry going over to the Toronto Island one time.
Yeah, well, back in the 1980s, he had a short-lived minority government, right?
Yep.
And he tried to ram a budget through without getting any of the other party's support. I think the Liberals are making the same mistake here, too. They're not trying to get the other party's support. If you look at Stephen Harper, he had made a deal with Jack Layton. Justin Trudeau, he made a deal with Jagmeet. But right now we're going to have a political game of chicken happening in Ottawa this afternoon, and we're hoping that we don't have to go again to another election. And if you look at the polls right now, it's not going to be much different, the result. So I'm mad at all the parties for not negotiating a deal here to pass a budget. We're in pretty critical times right now with the trade stuff, the threatening of sovereignty. The world is not a safe place anymore with all we can't rely on the United States for our defense. So I'm a little mad right now at our current prime minister because he doesn't seem to want to negotiate, Mike, and that's my thoughts.
All right, Mike, appreciate the call. Harkening back to the Joe Clark days, he can thank Kim Campbell for having a shorter tenure as Prime Minister than he did, but only 9 months did Joe Clark last as Prime Minister, June of 79 to March of 1980. I cannot resist talking to a man next who describes himself as grumpy. Grumpy Phil. Good afternoon. You're on Rant or Rave.
Good afternoon. You know, first I'll have to do a rave for my grandson who's 9 months old because I love my grumpiness. And we were in Lakeside Park the other day. He's in the stroller. He falls asleep. There I am sitting on a park bench watching geese and ducks, and I wasn't grumpy. I don't know how he took that superpower away from me, but he did. But I love to go on about politics. And I got to say, something that came up last week you talked about a couple of times, and that was politics wages. I got to really send out kudos to people who get into politics because they want to make things better. And I think in the last few years we've seen, is it a stepping stone to something better? Is it a temporary? This is good for now, but I've got other plans. So thanks for voting me in, but I need more money or I got into that opportunity. So I'm gonna leave it at as my grandson has done. Put me on the positive side. Thank you to the politicians, municipally, provincially, federally, who get in there to do the right thing. You folks, you're awesome.
All right, Phil, appreciate the call. Lakeside Park, a beautiful park in our community, Queen Westmount area, and a great song by Rush. They sang about the Lakeside Park in Toronto. Just on that note of your 9-month-old grandson making you feel better, just takes me back to yesterday, and I shared this with you briefly at the beginning of the show, but it kind of hurt my heart. So this is my rant. I was out walking Rosie the pandemic pup. It was looked from the inside like a beautiful morning to get out, sunny. But oh my goodness, that wind. If you were out yesterday, you felt it, right? It was bitter. It was cold. And anyway, we still went out for our walk. And I'm sure Rosie loves this. She's mostly husky with a little bit of boxer in her. So this is her jam. She likes it when it gets cold. So off we go. We're outside having our walk. We're in a park going along a path. Rosie's sniffing up a storm. It's awesome. And there's this little kid walking with, I presume, his dad. But this couldn't have been 5 years old. And the kid's got his arms out to his side, and the wind, because it was so strong, you could tell it was swaying him a little bit. And this kid was just having his moment. He was loving it. He was making, he was just enjoying the wind moving his little body around. This was an experience for him. And I loved watching him have that experience because who wouldn't want to? I was out there being grumpy like Phil because of how damn cold it was in that wind. And this kid was just like, the wind, it's moving me. It was wonderful. And I don't think Dad even noticed because he had his nose in his phone. Like he's walking along this path in the park. The kid's several steps behind, having this moment of joy brought on by nature. And Dad didn't even lift his head. Might have been brother for all I know because he couldn't see the guy's face. That's how into the phone it was. And it made me sad. How do these things have so much control over us? Unlike Phil, who was at the park on the bench with the kid, taking joy and peace from the infant, how can this guy, what is on his phone that is so important or so captivating that you miss an experience like that with your child, your brother, your nephew? I don't know who the relationship, but it made me sad. The parent missed out on that one. And I cannot stand the control these little screens have on our lives. There's my rant. As we continue ranting and or raving on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Thanks to Russell, as big a Rush fan as ever there's been. The Rush song Lakeside Park, based on the Lakeside Park in St. Catharines, where they have that statue of Neil Peart now, right? That's where Peart grew up. There's a Lakeside Park everywhere. We got one right here in Kitchener as well. Queen and Westmount area. Let's get back to the phones on Rant and or Rave this afternoon. Walter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I haven't heard you complaining about how cold it was over at the Sleeman Center there on Saturday night yet, Mike.
Well, you know why?
I know why. Because it was heating up in there on Saturday.
No.
Why,
Listen, first of all, listen here. First of all, it's cold because knuckleheads like you come wandering into my workspace and give me a frigid reception. That's one reason. But number two, I know how to dress for it now. I wear my woolies when I go to Guelph. Listen, if you guys haven't invented indoor heat yet, I can't help you out.
Boy, if you thought that was a frigid reception, I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. But that was an excellent game, and I don't know what's happening, but what are we, buddy? Like maybe a game or two underneath you now?
Yes, but emphasis on the underneath. You haven't caught up yet.
Yeah, not yet. That's right.
That's right.
So, also, in that Steeler game on the weekend, now I know you said you didn't watch it,
I don't even know. Did they play? I don't even know.
But, what's with the spitting in that league? There's another guy on the weekend who spat on a Steeler guy. It's like, what is going on? And it's fully caught on camera, and he's in the dressing room saying, I didn't do that. And it's as clear as day, like exactly what he did. So I don't know what's going on with that league, but these guys who spit all the time. And then how about the Grey Cup, Mike? I know you're a big fan of that, aren't you?
My Saskatchewan Roughriders, Walter, I adopted them as my team this year, and they went and won the Grey Cup. There you go.
They are the team, buddy. They've been my team for a long time. Okay, man, you take care, and I'll have a chilly reception for you next home game I'm at. Okay, buddy?
Can't wait. Good seeing you at the game yesterday, Walter. I don't know how he gets into the places he gets into, but I hear somebody calling my name. I'm on press row. I've got my headset on. I'm ready to broadcast a game, and there's Walter in the booth at the Sleeman Center. The guy, he's a magician. He gets access to every place. Good thing we're actually friends. He just likes to give me a hard time. Afif, rant or rave, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. First of all, that win on yesterday.
Okay, Afif, first of all, I'm sorry, but you sound like you are buried under the covers, my friend.
Oops. My heating was on, high. Is that better now?
Not really. Can you yell?
Yeah, I can yell.
Okay.
Can you yell? All right. So basically, the wind yesterday was horrible. I was driving in my car. I was starting moving left and right.
Yeah, it was even buffeting the cars. It was so heavy, the wind. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I have kind of a rave. I mean, okay, even though these are really down right now, so were the Blue Jays before they became so good. So maybe these can come back.
You know what? I hope you're right, Afif, because it's true. Up until about mid-June or so, the Blue Jays were way out of things too. What the Blue Jays figured out, or what happened, was this coming together of the team, right? And playing for one another and enjoying being around one another. And I don't know. Anyway, I hope so. And I'm sorry if you have trouble hearing Afif. It's funny. I was just thinking about him last night or this morning. At one point, I'm like, I haven't heard from Afif in a while. And I hope that he hasn't changed his listening habits. But on the other hand, I thought, well, at least we don't have to deal with his rotten phone. It's hard, isn't it? I appreciate your calls. I appreciate them even more when we can hear you clearly. Like Fred. Fred's going to give us a doozy here. Good afternoon, Fred.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Great, thanks. How's it going with you?
Good.
Good.
Show all the time. Great show.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make a point on the Matthews-Marner thing. I hear over and over and over that Matthews is going to do nothing because Marner being gone. People tend to forget that he was drafted first overall without Marner's help. He scored 4 goals in his very first game as a rookie, which no one's ever done without any help from Marner. And it goes both ways. Marner got 100 points last year and basically 100 points the last 2 years. Well, if we wouldn't have had Marner or Matthews put those goals in for him, he wouldn't have got those points that he got. You need a great goal scorer to get 100 points. And definitely, it's just when I hear that they say Marner's everything, Matthews nothing without Marner, it's wrong. just wanted to put that in there.
All right, Fred. I appreciate you putting that in there. And I don't disagree. I think Matthews, and I've said it before, that's why we do AM on AM in the AM after Leafs games. AM, Austin Matthews' initials on AM radio in the AM part of the day. Morning after games, when Matthews scores, we play the clips for you. I agree. And I think, too, Austin Matthews is underappreciated as a complete hockey player. Both ends of the ice, he is a top-tier player, no question about it. I'm not saying he's nothing without Mitch Marner. I am saying I think he misses his buddy so far this season, but they'll get used to it. It's still a little bit on the early side. And as I said, I'm feeling a little bit sheepish today for realizing I didn't know how badly I was taking it until they started giving me the gears in Guelph on Saturday night. My buddies Drewe and Perry, who call games for the Storm on Rogers TV, were giving me the gears. Drury's a Capitals fan. Perry, he's a good Leafs boy. That's why we get along. And then I forget the name of the other fellow who's a New York Rangers fan, but they were all over me. I'm like, guys, come on. So we got into some good-natured back and forth on hockey, but I was very defensive of our Maple Leafs. We'll turn it around. For now, I'm going to turn things over to Now You Know with Rob Snow, but we'll come back tomorrow morning at 9 and do this all over again, okay? I'll be here then. I hope you will too, and we can have some more conversation. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.